The fluorescent lights above Gate 47 flickered twice before Marcus Holloway hit the floor. His skin had gone the color of old newspaper, sweat pooling beneath him like he'd been dragged from a river. 200 people stood frozen, phones out, mouths open, doing absolutely nothing. Airport security fumbled with their radios. A flight attendant dropped her clipboard. And somewhere in the back of that crowd, a woman in a faded cardigan started moving. Nobody looked at her. Nobody ever did. Jenna Rains had spent 6 years as a combat medic in Kandahar, stitching soldiers back together under mortar fire, and now she couldn't get a single person at Mercy Hill Hospital to remember her name. She was 10 minutes away from the promotion that would have changed everything: her daughter's tuition, the car that kept dying, the apartment with the leak she couldn't afford to fix. 10 minutes. She dropped her bag and ran anyway. Before we dive in, I need your help. If this story grabs you, stick with me until the end. Like this video, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this journey goes. Now, let's get back to the moment everything changed. The man's pulse was already thready when Jenna reached him, his lips turning blue at the edges. She shoved past a businessman recording the whole thing on his phone. "Call 911, she snapped at no one in particular. "Now." Her hands moved before her brain caught up, checking his airway, tilting his head back, fingers finding the carotid artery. Weak. Too weak. Around her the crowd pressed closer, a wall of bodies and noise, but her world had shrunk to the 6 feet of tile where Marcus Holloway was dying. "I'm a nurse," she said, louder this time, though nobody had asked. "Someone get me an AED." A security guard stammered something about protocol. Jenna ignored him. She'd stopped listening to people who confused procedure with action a long time ago. Marcus's chest convulsed once, then went still. "Don't you dare," Jenna muttered, lacing her fingers together and slamming her palms against his sternum. The first compression cracked something, a rib, maybe 2. She didn't stop. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 more. The rhythm came back to her like muscle memory, like she was back in the desert with sand in her teeth and blood on her boots. Someone finally showed up with the defibrillator. She ripped open his shirt, slapped the pads on, and hit the button. His body arched off the ground. The machine beeped, analyzed, told her to shock again. She did. On the 3rd shock, Marcus gasped, a wet, horrible sound, and his eyes cracked open. Jenna sagged back on her heels, her hands still shaking from the adrenaline. Around her, the crowd exhaled like they'd all been holding the same breath. That's when she heard the final boarding call echo across the terminal. Her flight, the last one to Chicago tonight. The interview tomorrow morning that could have pulled her out of the hole she'd been drowning in for 3 years. Jenna looked at the man on the floor, then at the gate where they were already closing the doors. Her daughter's face flashed through her mind. Lily, 12 years old, who still wore shoes 2 sizes too small because Jenna kept choosing between rent and everything else. She stayed on the floor. The paramedics arrived 4 minutes later. By then, the plane was gone, and so was everything Jenna had been working toward. She gave them the rundown: VFib, 3 shocks, pulse restored, and they nodded like she'd done something routine, like she hadn't just thrown away the 1 shot she had at climbing out of the wreckage her life had become. "You should go," one of them said, not unkindly. "We've got it from here." Jenna stood, her knees popping, and walked back to her bag. Her phone was already lighting up with texts. The first one was from her supervisor at Mercy Hill. "Where are you?" Then another. "Dr. Hastings is asking for you. This is important." And finally, "If you're not here in 20 minutes, don't bother coming back." Jenna stared at the screen until the words blurred. She'd been at Mercy Hill for 8 years, longer if you counted the year she spent in their free clinic before they hired her full-time. 8 years of double shifts and skipped lunches and biting her tongue every time doctor. Hastings called her sweetie, like she was someone's receptionist. 8 years, and they couldn't give her 20 minutes. She typed back, "Medical emergency, patient coding, on my way." The response came 10 seconds later. "Too late. Position's been filled. We'll discuss your future when you return." Jenna read it twice, then shoved the phone in her pocket. Her hands were still shaking. She didn't know if it was from the adrenaline or the rage or the fact that she'd just saved a man's life, and somehow that made her expendable. The airport felt too bright, too loud. She walked past the Starbucks where she'd bought a coffee 2 hours ago, back when she still thought today would be different. A janitor was mopping up something near the bathboards. A kid screamed at his mother about a toy. Life kept moving, indifferent and relentless, while Jenna tried to remember how to breathe. She made it to the parking garage before she started crying. Not the pretty kind. The ugly, choking kind that made her ribs hurt. She sat in her car with her forehead pressed against the steering wheel and let herself fall apart for exactly 3 minutes. Then she wiped her face, started the engine, and drove back to the hospital that had just fired her. Mercy Hill Regional Medical Center sat on the edge of Ashford like a monument to bureaucracy. 12 stories of beige concrete and tinted windows that reflected nothing but sky. Jenna had spent so many hours inside those walls that she'd stopped seeing them, the way you stop seeing your own face in the mirror. But tonight, pulling into the employee lot with her headlights cutting through the dark, the building looked different, smaller somehow, like a trap she'd walked into willingly. She found a spot in the back next to the dumpsters where the night shift always parked. Her badge still worked for now, and the security guard at the door waved her through without looking up. The emergency department was chaos as usual. A drunk guy arguing with triage, a kid with a broken arm. Somewhere down the hall, someone was screaming about needing their meds right now, and Jenna felt the familiar pull of it, the way she always did. The noise, the mess, the fact that people needed help, and she knew how to give it. But tonight, she walked straight past the nurse's station and headed for the administrative wing. Dr. Hastings' office was on the 3rd floor, tucked behind a door with frosted glass and a nameplate that read Director of Nursing Operations. Jenna knocked once and walked in without waiting for an answer. Barbara Hastings looked up from her desk, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. She was 50-something, blonde, the kind of woman who wore pearls to work and acted like that made her someone important. Behind her, the wall was covered in framed certificates and photos of her shaking hands with people Jenna didn't recognize. "You're late," Barbara said. "I was saving someone's life. That's not my problem." Barbara took off her glasses and set them down with the kind of precision that made Jenna want to knock them onto the floor. "You missed the meeting with Dr. Alvarez. She flew in from Chicago specifically to interview you for the head nurse position. Do you have any idea how much time and money we invested in setting that up? I was at the airport when... I don't care where you were." Barbara's voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. "You made a commitment. You broke it. That tells me everything I need to know about your priorities." Jenna felt something cold settle in her chest. "My priorities? I've been here 8 years. I've worked every holiday, every weekend you needed someone to cover. I've stayed late, come in early, done every single thing you've ever asked me to do. And yet, when it mattered most, you chose to play hero at an airport instead of being here. A man was dying. That's what paramedics are for." Barbara leaned back in her chair, her expression somewhere between bored and annoyed. "You're a good nurse, Jenna. You work hard, but you don't think strategically. You react instead of plan, and that's why you'll never move beyond where you are now." The words landed like a punch. Jenna opened her mouth, then closed it. Because what was she supposed to say? That she'd spent 6 years in a war zone learning that planning didn't mean anything when someone was bleeding out in front of you? That she'd seen people die while officers argued about protocol, and she'd sworn she'd never be that person? "So that's it?" Jenna said finally. "I'm done?" "Not done. Just reassigned." Barbara pulled a folder from her desk and slid it across. "We're moving you to nights. Permanently. Same pay, fewer headaches for everyone." Jenna stared at the folder. She didn't open it. "Nights. It's a good fit for you. Less oversight, more autonomy. You'll be able to do your job without anyone breathing down your neck." Translation, they were burying her. Nights meant no visibility, no chance for advancement, no way out. It meant she'd be stuck in the same position for the next 20 years, watching people like Barbara collect paychecks for doing nothing while Jenna did the actual work. "You've got until Monday to decide," Barbara said, already looking back at her computer. "If you don't want it, I'm sure we can find someone else." Jenna stood there for another 10 seconds, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Then she turned and walked out before she said something she couldn't take back. The hallway outside was empty, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant beep of monitors. Jenna leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. She could still feel Marcus Holloway's ribs cracking under her hands, could still hear the machine telling her to shock him again, could still see the way his eyes opened, confused and alive because she hadn't walked away. Her phone buzzed. Another text. This one from her daughter. "Mom, where are you? I'm hungry." Jenna checked the time. Almost 9. She'd promised Lily she'd be home by 7. Another promise broken. She texted back, "On my way. Order pizza. My card's on the counter." The response came immediately. It got declined again. Jenna closed her eyes and counted to 10, then 20. Then she stopped counting and just stood there, trying to remember when her life had turned into this. The emergency department was still loud when she passed through, but quieter now. The drunk guy was gone. The kid with the broken arm was in X-ray. Jenna thought about stopping at the nurse's station, saying goodbye to the people she'd worked with for 8 years. But what was the point? They'd find out soon enough that she'd been demoted. Hospitals were worse than high schools for gossip. She was halfway to the exit when someone called her name. "Jenna?" She turned. A security guard was jogging toward her. Young guy, maybe 25, but with a radio clipped to his belt that kept crackling with static. She didn't recognize him. "Yeah? There's someone here to see you, says it's urgent." Jenna frowned. "Who?" "Didn't give a name, just said he needs to talk to the nurse from the airport. That you?" Her stomach dropped. "Where is he?" "Waiting room, VIP section." Mercy Hill didn't have a VIP section. It had a lobby with plastic chairs and a vending machine that ate your money half the time. But the guard was already walking, so Jenna followed him through a door she'd never noticed before, down a hallway that was too clean, too quiet, into a room that looked like it belonged in a different hospital entirely. Marcus Holloway sat in a leather chair by the window, looking a hell of a lot better than he had 3 hours ago. He changed into a suit, expensive, the kind you didn't buy off a rack, and someone had combed his hair back. But his face was still pale, and when he stood up, he moved carefully like his ribs hurt. "Miss Raines," he said. "Thank you for coming." Jenna stopped in the doorway. "How do you know my name?" "I asked." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." She didn't move. "What is this?" "This is me trying to say thank you. You saved my life tonight." "That's my job." "Not anymore, from what I hear." Jenna's jaw tightened. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus Holloway smiled, and for the first time, Jenna noticed the way he held himself. Not like someone who'd just been shocked back to life, but like someone used to being in charge. "I'm the regional director for the Department of Health and Human Services. I was on my way to shut this hospital down." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and impossible. "What?" Mercy Hill has been under investigation for 6 months. Fraudulent billing, patient neglect, staff shortages that violate federal regulations. I was flying to Chicago to file the final report. If I'd made that flight, this place would have been closed by the end of the month. Jenna felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a tablet, swiping through screens until he found what he was looking for. He turned it toward her. "This is your staffing report from last quarter. You were running the ER with half the nurses you're supposed to have. Your patient-to-nurse ratio is double the legal limit, and your administration has been pocketing the difference." Chin. Jenna stared at the numbers on the screen. She'd known they were understaffed. Everyone knew, but seeing it laid out like that, seeing exactly how bad it was, made her feel sick. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the only person in this building who did the right thing tonight. You didn't walk away. You didn't hesitate. And from what I've been hearing since I got here, that's how you've been operating for years." He paused. "How long have you been reporting the staffing issues to your supervisors? 3 years? Maybe longer. And what did they tell you? That I needed to be more efficient, that I was complaining too much, that if I couldn't handle the workload, maybe I wasn't cut out for management." Marcus nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Your director of nursing operations, Barbara Hastings. She's been signing off on staffing reports that claim you're fully staffed. She's been taking federal funding meant for hiring and redirecting it into the hospital's general budget. And when people like you try to push back, she buries them." Jenna's hands were shaking again. You can prove that? I can prove all of it. That's why I was shutting you down. So why haven't you? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because I died tonight. I was dead for almost 3 minutes, and you brought me back. And while I was lying on that floor, unable to breathe, unable to move, I kept thinking about all the people who are going to die in hospitals like this one if I don't fix the system. And then you showed up, and you didn't care about protocol or liability or whether anyone was going to thank you. You just acted. He stood up, slower this time, and walked to the window. Outside, the parking lot was nearly empty, just a few scattered cars under the yellow glow of the streetlights. I'm not shutting down Mercy Hill, he said finally. I'm taking it over. Federal receivership, new management, new funding, and I need someone who actually gives a damn about patient care to help me clean house. Jenna felt her heart start to pound. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a war. Marcus turned back to face her. Because that's what this is. The people who've been running this place into the ground aren't going to go quietly. They're going to fight. They're going to lawyer up. They're going to make your life hell. And if you say yes, you'll be standing right in the middle of it. She thought about Barbara Hastings and her frosted glass door, about the night shifts they wanted to bury her in, about Lily sitting at home with an empty fridge and a mother who kept making promises she couldn't keep. What's the job? Jenna asked. Interim director of nursing. You'd report directly to me. Full authority to rebuild the department however you see fit. Triple your current salary, effective immediately. The number he named was more money than Jenna had made in the last 2 years combined. Why me? Because everyone else here is either complicit or too scared to make waves. You're the only one who already walked away from the easy choice tonight. That tells me you'll do it again when it counts. Jenna looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she recognized. The same exhaustion she carried. The same frustration of watching a system fail people over and over again while everyone pretended it was fine. When do I start? She said. Marcus smiled. Right now. He handed her a badge, a real one, not the flimsy plastic thing she'd been carrying for 8 years. Federal credentials. Her name printed across the front in bold letters. Monday morning, we're bringing in auditors. By noon, Barbara Hastings and half the administration will be out. By the end of the week, we'll have new staff, new equipment, and a new reputation. But first, I need you to do something for me. What? Go home. Get some sleep. Because tomorrow this place is going to explode, and I need you ready. Jenna took the badge. It felt heavier than it should have. Like it was made of something more than plastic and laminate. Like it was a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. One more thing, Marcus said as she turned to leave. The man who recorded you saving my life at the airport, he posted the video online. It's got about 500,000 views so far. By morning, everyone in this city is going to know your name. Jenna froze. What? Welcome to the other side of invisibility, Ms. Rains. It's going to get loud. She walked out of that room in a daze, her mind spinning through 100 different futures, none of them anything like the one she'd woken up to that morning. By the time she reached her car, her phone was already buzzing with notifications, texts, emails, friend requests from people she hadn't spoken to in years. She ignored all of it and drove home. Lily was asleep on the couch when Jenna walked in, the TV still playing some show she'd fallen asleep watching. Jenna turned it off, draped a blanket over her daughter, and sat down on the floor beside her. She stayed there for a long time, just watching Lily breathe, thinking about all the ways her life was about to change. The video hit 1 million views by midnight. By Sunday morning, it was trending on every platform. By the time Jenna walked back into Mercy Hill on Monday with her new badge and her new title, and Marcus Holloway standing beside her like some kind of federal reckoning, the entire hospital knew what was coming. Barbara Hastings didn't even make it to her office. She was escorted out by federal agents before 9 a.m., her face red, her mouth moving, but no sound coming out that mattered anymore. 3 administrators followed her, then 2 doctors, then the CFO, who tried to run and made it as far as the parking garage before they caught him. Jenna stood in the lobby and watched it all happen, her arms crossed, her expression blank. People kept looking at her like they expected her to gloat. She didn't. There was nothing to celebrate about watching a place she'd given 8 years of her life to get torn apart, even if it deserved it. But when Marcus Holloway stood in the main conference room that afternoon and announced that Jenna Raines was the new director of nursing and that anyone who had a problem with that could leave, nobody moved. And when he asked if there were any questions, a young nurse in the back, someone Jenna had trained 2 years ago, raised her hand. "Does this mean we're finally going to be fully staffed?" Jenna looked at Marcus. He nodded. "Yes," Jenna said, "starting today." The room erupted, not in applause, this wasn't that kind of moment, but in something quieter, something that felt like relief, like maybe, for the first time in years, someone was actually going to fix the things that had been broken for so long. Jenna left the meeting early and went to find the ER. She found it the same way she always did, following the noise, the chaos, the sound of people who needed help. A nurse she didn't recognize was trying to manage 5 patients at once, his face red, his movements frantic. "Need a hand?" Jenna asked. He looked up, startled. "Aren't you the new director?" "I'm also a nurse." She grabbed a pair of gloves. "Which one needs me first?" They worked side by side for the next 3 hours. When her shift technically ended, Jenna stayed. And when the night nurse showed up understaffed because 2 people had called out, Jenna stayed for that too. She didn't leave until midnight, and when she finally walked out to her car, she found Marcus Holloway leaning against it, his arms crossed, a bemused expression on his face. "You know you don't have to do that anymore," he said. "You're management now." "I know. So why are you still on the floor?" Jenna unlocked her car and tossed her bag in the back seat. "Because that's where the patients are." Marcus laughed, a real one, not the polite kind people used in meetings. "You're going to be a pain in my ass, aren't you?" "Probably." "Good. I was worried I'd made a mistake." He pushed off her car and started walking toward his own, then stopped and turned back. "Jenna?" "Yeah?" "Thank you. For tonight, for all of it." She nodded, not trusting herself to say anything that wouldn't sound too big, too complicated. Marcus got in his car and drove away, and Jenna sat in hers for a long time, staring at the hospital through her windshield. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lily. "Mom, are you famous now? Everyone at school is talking about you." Jenna smiled and typed back, "No, just doing my job. That's not what the video says. Videos lie. This one doesn't." Jenna started the car. She was halfway home when she realized she was crying again. Not the ugly kind this time, but something quieter. Something that felt a little bit like hope. Tuesday brought reporters. Wednesday brought lawyers. By Thursday, the hospital was crawling with auditors and investigators, all of them pulling files and asking questions that nobody wanted to answer. Jenna spent most of her time in meetings. Most of those meetings trying to explain to people who'd never worked a day in a hospital why everything had been so broken for so long. On Friday, Marcus called her into his temporary office. "We've got a problem," he said. Jenna sat down. "What now?" "Barbara Hastings filed a complaint. Says you assaulted her." "I never touched her." "I know, but she's got a lawyer, and the lawyer's making noise. Says we fired her without cause, that the whole investigation is a witch hunt, and that you're part of some personal vendetta." Jenna felt her stomach drop. Can she do that? She can try. But here's the thing, she's not wrong about one part. We did fire her, and technically, until the federal audit is complete, we don't have definitive proof of criminal wrongdoing. Just a lot of suspicious activity. So what are you saying? I'm saying we need to be careful. We've got the momentum right now, but if Barbara's lawyers find a crack, they'll exploit it. And if they succeed, everything we've done here falls apart. Jenna stared at him. You're telling me she might win? I'm telling you she's going to fight like hell, and so are the others. This isn't over, Jenna. It's just getting started. That night, Jenna couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Barbara Hastings and her lawyers and all the ways this could go wrong. Around 2 a.m., she gave up and went to her laptop. The video from the airport was still circulating. Comment sections were full of people calling her a hero, but buried in there were other voices too. People saying she should have stayed out of it. People questioning why she'd been at the airport in the first place. People who knew Barbara Hastings and thought she was being railroaded. Jenna closed the laptop and went to check on Lily. Her daughter was asleep, one arm hanging off the bed, her phone still clutched in her hand. Jenna took it carefully and set it on the nightstand. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and watched her daughter breathe, the way she used to when Lily was a baby, and Jenna was so terrified of messing everything up that she'd check on her every hour. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I'm really trying." Lily didn't wake up. Jenna sat there until the sun started to rise, then went to make coffee she didn't want and face another day of a war she hadn't asked for. By Monday, 3 more staff members had been fired. By Tuesday, the hospital was 30% over capacity because word had spread that Mercy Hill was actually safe now, actually functional, and people were coming from towns over an hour away just to be treated there. By Wednesday, Jenna was running on 4 hours of sleep and spite. She was in the middle of a staffing meeting when her phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. "I'm in a meeting," she answered. "Drop it. Get to my office, now." The line went dead. Jenna looked at the 10 faces staring at her around the conference table. "We'll pick this up tomorrow," she said, already standing. Marcus's office was on the 5th floor in what used to be some executive's corner suite. When Jenna walked in, he wasn't alone. A woman in a dark suit stood by the window, her back to the door, and something about the way she held herself made Jenna's instincts scream danger. "Jenna Raines," Marcus said. "This is Agent Diana Frost, FBI." The woman turned, and Jenna saw the badge clipped to her belt. "Ms. Raines, we need to talk about your military service." Everything stopped. The room, the world, Jenna's heartbeat. "My what?" "You served as a combat medic, 6 years, 3 tours, Kandahar, Kabul, classified operations in Syria, honorable discharge in 2018. Agent Frost pulled out a tablet and set it on the desk. "Is that correct?" "Yes." "And you've never mentioned that to anyone here at Mercy Hill?" "It never came up." "Interesting." Frost tapped the screen and a photo appeared. A younger Jenna in desert fatigues standing next to 2 other soldiers Jenna hadn't thought about in years. "Because it turns out Barbara Hastings didn't just fire you, she flagged your file. Claimed you were unstable, potentially dangerous. Made some calls to people who made calls to us." Jenna felt cold all over. "She did what?" "She tried to have you investigated as a security risk, said you had undiagnosed PTSD, that you were violent, that the airport incident was proof you were a liability." "That's insane." "It is," Frost agreed. "But it's also federal business now, so I pulled your military records. And that's when things got interesting." She swiped to another screen. This one showed a commendation letter signed by someone whose name Jenna didn't recognize but whose rank made her stomach clench. "You saved 43 lives during your last deployment. 43. Under fire, under siege, under conditions that would have broken most people. You didn't just keep soldiers alive, you rebuilt an entire field hospital from scratch when your commanding officer got killed. And when your base got overrun, you stayed behind to evacuate the wounded while everyone else pulled out." Jenna couldn't breathe. She hadn't talked about that night in 6 years, hadn't let herself think about it. "I didn't. You were recommended for a Bronze Star. It got buried in paperwork. But it's all here." Frost turned off the tablet. "So, here's where we are. Barbara Hastings tried to destroy you using the one thing you've never told anyone about. And instead, she just handed me proof that you're exactly the kind of person who should be running this hospital." Jenna looked at Marcus. He was smiling. "What's happening?" she asked. "We're going to court," Marcus said. "Barbara's lawyers want to fight? Fine, let's fight, but now we're bringing your military record. We're showing a judge exactly who you are and exactly what she tried to bury. And when we're done, she won't just lose her case, she'll lose her license." Agent Frost picked up her tablet. "I'll be testifying. So will your former commanding officer. So will 3 of the soldiers you saved." She headed for the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Ms. Raines, thank you for your service. And thank you for not letting people like Barbara Hastings win." She left. Jenna stood there, her mind reeling until Marcus walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" "I don't know." "That's fair." He squeezed once, then let go. "But Jenna? She picked the wrong fight, and now everyone's going to know it." Outside Marcus's window, the sun was setting over Ashford, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Jenna watched it burn, her hands still shaking, and wondered how many more ways her life was going to break apart before it finally started to heal. The court date arrived on a Tuesday morning when the sky was the color of old bruises. Jenna stood outside the Ashford County Courthouse in a suit she'd borrowed from a coworker, her hands shoved deep in her pockets because they wouldn't stop shaking. Marcus pulled up in a black sedan, Agent Frost in the passenger seat, and when they got out, they both looked like people who'd done this 1,000 times before. Jenna had never been inside a courtroom in her life. "You ready?" Marcus asked. She nodded because lying seemed easier than admitting she'd spent the last 3 nights throwing up every time she thought about testifying. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, cameras, people shouting questions she couldn't hear over the ringing in her ears. Someone shoved a microphone in her face. Agent Frost stepped between them without breaking stride. Inside, the air smelled like old wood and fear. They walked through a metal detector, down a hallway lined with people waiting for their own disasters to unfold, into a courtroom that looked exactly like every legal drama Jenna had ever seen on TV. Rows of benches, a judge's chair that sat too high, an American flag in the corner that had seen better days. Barbara Hastings sat at the defense table with 3 lawyers in expensive suits, her blonde hair perfect, her expression somewhere between bored and vindictive. When she saw Jenna walk in, something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or the realization that Jenna wasn't going to disappear as easily as she'd hoped. The bailiff called the room to order. Everyone stood. Judge Patricia Moreno walked in, 60-something, black robe, gray hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and looked at both tables like she was already tired of whatever was about to happen. "This is a preliminary hearing for Hastings versus Department of Health and Human Services and Mercy Hill Regional Medical Center," she said. "Plaintiff is alleging wrongful termination, defamation, and civil rights violations. Are both parties ready to proceed?" Barbara's lead attorney stood up, a man named Richard Sterling, with silver hair and a smile that probably cost more than Jenna's car. "Ready, Your Honor." Marcus stood. "Ready, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "Mr. Sterling, you may begin." Sterling walked to the center of the room like he owned it. "Your Honor, this case is about a woman who dedicated 23 years of her life to Mercy Hill Regional Medical Center, only to be fired without cause, humiliated in front of her colleagues, and publicly vilified by a federal agency that overstepped its authority. My client, Barbara Hastings, was the Director of Nursing Operations, a position she earned through hard work, dedication, and an unblemished record of service. She was removed from her position based on allegations that have never been proven by people who have no authority to make such decisions, and in retaliation for her refusal to promote an employee who lacks the qualifications for advancement. He gestured toward Jenna without looking at her. Ms. Raines is a competent floor nurse. No one disputes that. But she is not management material. She has a history of insubordination, documented complaints about her inability to follow protocol, and a pattern of making decisions without consulting her supervisors. When Ms. Hastings attempted to address these issues, Ms. Raines responded with hostility and aggression. And when Ms. Hastings made the difficult decision to reassign her to a position better suited to her skill set, Ms. Raines conspired with federal agents to manufacture a scandal that would justify her revenge. Jenna felt her jaw clench. Marcus put a hand on her arm. A warning. Sterling kept talking. The video that went viral last week, the one showing Ms. Raines performing CPR at an airport, that was staged. Ms. Raines knew Marcus Holloway would be at that gate. She knew he was planning to shut down Mercy Hill. And she orchestrated a situation that would make her look like a hero and him look like someone who owed her a debt. This entire federal investigation is based on that manufactured event. And my client is the victim of it. He sat down. The courtroom was silent except for the scratch of a court reporter's fingers on her machine. Judge Moreno looked at Marcus. Response? Marcus stood slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Your Honor, I'm not going to waste the court's time with theatrics. The facts are simple. Barbara Hastings was fired because she broke federal law. She falsified staffing reports, redirected federal funding meant for patient care into the hospital's general budget, and retaliated against employees who attempted to report these violations. We have documentation. We have witnesses. We have a pattern of behavior that spans 3 years. This isn't a wrongful termination case. It's a criminal case waiting to happen. He pulled out a folder and set it on the table. As for Ms. Raines, her only crime was doing her job. She saved a man's life. That man happened to be me. And when I looked into why she was at that airport in the first place, I discovered that she'd been scheduled for an interview that would have promoted her out of a hospital that was actively failing its patients. An interview that Ms. Hastings canceled without telling anyone. An interview that Ms. Hastings later used as grounds to demote Ms. Raines to night shifts. A move that was documented in an email sent hours before I even regained consciousness. He opened the folder and pulled out a printed email. This is that email, Your Honor, sent at 6:47 p.m. I was admitted to Mercy Hill at 7:15 p.m. Ms. Hastings didn't know who I was when she sent this. She didn't know I would survive. She just knew that Ms. Raines had missed a meeting, and she used it as an opportunity to bury someone who had been reporting her for years. Barbara's face went red. One of her lawyers leaned over and whispered something urgent. Judge Moreno took the email and read it. Her expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. Mr. Sterling, she said finally, your client sent an email demoting Ms. Raines before anyone knew the outcome of the medical emergency? Sterling stood up. My client was following hospital policy. Ms. Raines missed a critical meeting without approval. The demotion was procedural, not personal. Procedural, the judge repeated. She looked back at the email. Within 90 minutes of Ms. Raines calling in a medical emergency? She didn't call in. She texted after the meeting was already over. Because she was performing CPR on a dying man. Sterling's jaw tightened. That's her version of events. There's video evidence, Marcus said quietly. Would the court like to see it? The judge nodded. Marcus pulled out his phone, connected it to the courtroom's display system, and pressed play. The video filled the screen, raw, unedited footage from someone's phone camera. Jenna saw herself from the outside for the first time, saw the way she'd moved without hesitation, the way she'd cracked Marcus's ribs and kept going, the way the crowd had stood frozen while she fought to bring him back. The sound was terrible, people shouting, someone crying, the mechanical voice of the AED telling her to stay clear. But none of that mattered as much as the timestamp in the corner. 6:23 p.m., 24 minutes before Barbara had sent that email. Judge Moreno watched the whole thing in silence. When it ended, she turned to Sterling. Your client knew about this video? She may have been made aware. Yes or no, counsel? Sterling hesitated. Yes. And she still sent the demotion email? As I said, Your Honor, it was procedural. It was retaliation. The judge's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. And unless you have something that contradicts this timeline, I'm inclined to believe Mr. Holloway's version of events. Barbara leaned forward and whispered something sharp to Sterling. He nodded and stood again. Your Honor, we'd like to call Miss Raines to the stand. If her actions were truly heroic and not orchestrated, she should have no problem answering a few questions about her background. Marcus turned to look at Jenna. She nodded once, then stood and walked to the witness stand on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. The bailiff swore her in. She sat down. Sterling approached with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression friendly in a way that made Jenna's skin crawl. Ms. Raines, you're a nurse, correct? Yes. How long have you been a nurse? 11 years, 8 of those at Mercy Hill. And before that? Jenna's throat tightened. I was a combat medic, 6 years. A combat medic, Sterling repeated like he was trying the words out. That's a very different environment from a civilian hospital, isn't it? In some ways. In what ways? Combat medicine is about stabilization, keeping someone alive long enough to get them to a surgical unit. Civilian nursing is about longer-term care. But the pressure must be similar, life or death decisions, split-second timing, high stress. Sometimes. Did you ever lose anyone? In combat? Marcus stood up. Objection. Relevance? Sterling didn't look away from Jenna. I'm establishing Ms. Raines' psychological state, Your Honor, her ability to handle stress, her decision-making process under pressure, all relevant to whether she's fit for the position she's been given. Judge Moreno frowned. I'll allow it. But get to the point, Mr. Sterling. Sterling smiled. Miss Raines, did you ever lose anyone in combat? Jenna felt the courtroom shrink. She could see the desert again. The sand, the blood, the way Private Davis had looked at her when he realized he wasn't going to make it. 22 years old. A kid from Ohio who'd never wanted to be there in the first place. Yes, she said. How many? 17. The number hung in the air. Sterling let it sit there for a moment, then continued. 17 soldiers died under your care, and yet you received an honorable discharge. No disciplinary action, no questions about your competence. Because I didn't kill them, Jenna said, her voice harder than she'd intended. They were already dying when they got to me. I did everything I could to save them. Sometimes it wasn't enough, but it must haunt you. Objection, Marcus said, louder this time. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Sterling, move on. Sterling nodded, but Jenna could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He'd gotten what he wanted. Planted the idea that she was damaged, unstable, someone who carried too much death around with her to be trusted. Let's talk about the airport, he said. You were on your way to Chicago for an interview, correct? Yes. An interview for a promotion you'd been trying to get for 3 years. Yes. And you missed it because you stopped to help Mr. Holloway. I stopped because he was dying. But you knew who he was. Jenna blinked. No, I didn't. You expect this court to believe that you had no idea Marcus Holloway, a federal director whose face has been in the news for months because of his work shutting down hospitals, just happened to collapse in front of you? I didn't know who he was until after I saved him. Sterling pulled out his phone and held it up. This is your social media profile, Ms. Raines. You follow several healthcare reform advocacy groups that have posted extensively about Mr. Holloway's work. You've liked and shared multiple articles about him. Jenna felt her stomach drop. She did follow those groups. She had shared those articles. But she'd never connected the name to a face, never thought she'd actually meet the man behind the policies. That doesn't mean I knew what he looked like, she said. Convenient. It's the truth. Sterling put his phone away. Let's say I believe you. Let's say you really didn't know who Marcus Holloway was when you saved his life. That still leaves the question of why you made the choice you did. You had 10 minutes to catch your flight, 10 minutes to make the interview that would have changed your life, and yet you stayed on the floor with a stranger instead. Why? Jenna looked at him, then at the judge, then at Marcus, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Because that's what you do, she said finally. When someone's dying in front of you, you don't walk away. You don't calculate the cost. You just act. Even if it costs you everything? Yes. Sterling tilted his head. That sounds more like a soldier than a nurse. Maybe it's both. He smiled again, and Jenna knew she'd said exactly what he wanted her to say. He turned to the judge. No further questions, Your Honor. Marcus stood up for cross-examination, but Judge Moreno held up a hand. I think we've heard enough for today. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. Mr. Sterling, if you have additional witnesses, now would be the time to disclose them. Sterling nodded. We do, Your Honor. We'll be calling several of Ms. Raines' former colleagues to testify about her behavior at Mercy Hill. The judge dismissed them. Jenna walked out of the courtroom in a fog, Marcus and Agent Frost flanking her like bodyguards. The reporters were waiting outside, but this time Marcus stopped and faced them. Ms. Raines is a decorated combat veteran who has dedicated her life to saving others, he said. The only thing she's guilty of is refusing to let people die when she had the power to save them. If that makes her unfit for management, then we need to rethink what management means. Someone shouted a question about Barbara Hastings. Marcus ignored it and steered Jenna toward the car. That night, Jenna couldn't go home. She drove to the hospital instead, parked in the employee lot, and sat in her car staring at the building. Her phone kept buzzing with messages. Reporters, friends she hadn't talked to in years. Her sister from Florida who only called when she wanted something. Jenna turned it off and went inside. The ER was slammed. 3 ambulances in the bay, every bed full, nurses running between rooms with that particular kind of controlled panic that came from being understaffed and overwhelmed. Jenna found the charge nurse, a woman named Rita, who'd been working at Mercy Hill longer than Jenna had been alive. "You're not supposed to be here," Rita said, but she was already handing Jenna a pair of gloves. "I know. The lawyers find out you're working while you're in litigation, they'll use it against you. Let them." Rita smiled, tired but genuine. "Room 4 needs an IV. Room 6 is waiting on labs. Room 9 is a mess, but aren't they all?" Jenna took the assignments and got to work. For the next 6 hours, she didn't think about courtrooms or lawyers or Barbara Hastings. She just moved from room to room, doing the things she'd always been good at, showing up when people needed her. It was almost midnight when she finally stopped. Her back hurt. Her feet hurt. But her head felt clearer than it had in days. She was washing her hands at the nurse's station when someone cleared their throat behind her. Dr. Leonard Briggs stood in the hallway, his arms crossed, his expression somewhere between annoyed and calculating. He was 50, balding, the kind of man who wore his authority like a weapon. "Ms. Raines." "Dr. Briggs, I didn't expect to see you here tonight. I didn't expect to be here." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You know I'm testifying tomorrow, against you." "I know. And you're still here, working, like nothing's changed." Jenna dried her hands and turned to face him. "What do you want me to say, Leonard? That I'm scared?" "I am. That I think you and Barbara are going to bury me?" "Maybe you will. But until that happens, I've got patients who need help. And I'm still a nurse." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or the realization that intimidation wasn't going to work. He opened his mouth to say something else, but Rita appeared from nowhere and stepped between them. "Dr. Briggs, if you're not here to see a patient, you need to leave. We're too busy for whatever this is." He stared at Rita for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. Rita waited until he was gone, then looked at Jenna. "That man's a snake." "I know. He's going to lie tomorrow. You know that, right?" "I know. And you're still here." Jenna pulled off her gloves and tossed them in the trash. "Where else would I be?" She left the hospital at 1 a.m. and drove home through empty streets. Lily was still awake when she got there, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and textbooks scattered everywhere. "You're supposed to be asleep," Jenna said. "So are you." Jenna sat down across from her. "What are you working on?" "History project. We're supposed to write about someone who made a difference." Lily looked up, and her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "I'm writing about you." Jenna felt something crack in her chest. "Lily, everyone at school is talking about you, about the video, about the trial. Some of them say nice things. Some of them say you're a liar. Some of them say you're crazy." Lily's voice broke. "But I know the truth. I know you're the reason I have food and a place to sleep and someone who shows up even when everything's falling apart. And I know that if anyone tries to take that away from us, they're going to have to go through you first." Jenna reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise?" "Promise." They sat like that for a while, just holding on to each other in a kitchen that smelled like old coffee and hope. Eventually, Lily went to bed. Jenna stayed up, reading through the history project her daughter had been working on, and when she got to the last paragraph, she had to put it down because she couldn't see through her tears. "My mom isn't perfect. She's tired all the time. She forgets things. Sometimes she works so much I don't see her for days. But when someone needs help, she doesn't ask if it's convenient or if it's fair. She just shows up. And maybe that's what heroes are, people who show up when everyone else walks away." The next morning arrived too fast. Jenna stood in front of the courthouse again, this time with Agent Frost's hand on her shoulder and Marcus looking like he hadn't slept either. The reporters were louder today, more aggressive, shouting questions about whether she regretted saving Marcus's life, whether she'd do it again, whether she thought she deserved the position she'd been given. Jenna ignored all of it and walked inside. The courtroom was more crowded this time. People she didn't recognize filled the benches, journalists, hospital staff, what looked like half of Barbara's family. Jenna took her seat at the plaintiff's table and tried not to look at Barbara, who sat across from her with the same perfect blonde hair and the same expression of someone who'd already won. Judge Moreno called the court to order. Sterling stood up. "Your Honor, we'd like to call our first witness. Dr. Leonard Briggs. Leonard walked to the stand in a suit that probably cost more than Jenna made in a month. He was sworn in, sat down, and folded his hands like he was about to deliver a lecture. Sterling approached. Dr. Briggs, you're the Chief Medical Officer at Mercy Hill Regional Medical Center, correct? I am. How long have you held that position? 12 years. And in that time, you've worked closely with Barbara Hastings? Very closely. Barbara and I collaborated on all major staffing and budget decisions. Can you describe her performance as Director of Nursing Operations? Leonard smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Barbara is one of the most competent administrators I've ever worked with. She's efficient, organized, and deeply committed to patient care. Under her leadership, our nursing department consistently met or exceeded federal standards. Sterling nodded. And Ms. Raines, how would you describe her performance? Leonard's expression shifted, still professional, but colder. Jenna is a skilled floor nurse. No one questions her clinical abilities, but she struggles with authority. She frequently disregarded hospital policy, made decisions without consulting her supervisors, and created conflict with other staff members. Can you give an example? Several. She would regularly override physician orders if she disagreed with them. She would take on responsibilities outside her scope of practice. She would stay late without authorization, which created overtime costs we couldn't afford. And when Barbara tried to address these issues, Jenna became defensive and hostile. Jenna felt her hands curl into fists under the table. Marcus leaned over and whispered, "Let him talk. We'll get our turn." Sterling pulled out a document. This is a written warning issued to Ms. Raines 6 months ago. Can you tell the court what it was for? Leonard took the document and read it. She administered medication to a patient without a physician's order. The medication was appropriate, and the patient recovered, but the process violated hospital protocol. So, she endangered a patient's safety. Objection, Marcus said. Mischaracterizes the testimony. Sustained, Sterling rephrased. She violated protocol in a way that could have endangered a patient's safety? Leonard hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Briggs. No further questions. Marcus stood up for cross-examination, and Jenna saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Anger, barely controlled. Dr. Briggs, you said Ms. Raines violated protocol by administering medication without a physician's order. What was the medication? I don't recall the specific. It was aspirin. Marcus pulled out his own copy of the document. The patient was experiencing chest pain consistent with a heart attack. Miss Raines gave him aspirin while waiting for the cardiologist to arrive. Standard protocol for suspected myocardial infarction. You're familiar with that protocol, correct? Leonard's jaw tightened. Yes. And the patient survived? Yes. Because Ms. Raines acted quickly? The cardiologist arrived 15 minutes later, 15 minutes during which Ms. Raines kept the patient stable. And yet, you wrote her up for it. She didn't follow procedure. Marcus leaned against the witness stand. Dr. Briggs, how many nurses are currently employed at Mercy Hill? I don't have the exact number. 83. You're 30% understaffed according to federal guidelines. You've been understaffed for 3 years. And in that time, how many times did you or Ms. Hastings request additional funding for nursing staff? We submitted multiple budget requests. How many were approved? Leonard didn't answer. 0, Marcus said. You submitted 6 requests over 3 years. All 6 were denied by the hospital's board of directors. And do you know why they were denied? Budget constraints. Because the money was being redirected into executive compensation and facility upgrades that had nothing to do with patient care. Marcus pulled out another document. This is your salary history, Dr. Briggs. You received a 15% raise 2 years ago, the same year Ms. Hastings received a 12% raise, the same year nursing staff were told there was no money for hiring. Does that seem like a coincidence? Sterling stood up. Objection. Relevance? Goes to credibility, Your Honor, Marcus said. Dr. Briggs is testifying about Ms. Raines' competence while actively participating in the mismanagement that created the condition she was trying to fix. Judge Moreno looked at Leonard. I'll allow it. Dr. Briggs, You may answer the question. Leonard shifted in his seat. My compensation is determined by the board based on performance metrics. Metrics that prioritize cost-cutting over patient outcomes? We balance both. You balance nothing. Marcus's voice cut through the courtroom. You and Ms. Hastings ran Mercy Hill into the ground while paying yourselves bonuses. You ignored federal regulations. You retaliated against employees who tried to report violations. And now you're sitting here trying to discredit the one person who actually gave a damn about keeping patients alive. That's not... Did you or did you not approve the staffing reports that Ms. Hastings submitted claiming the nursing department was fully staffed? Silence. Dr. Briggs? I trusted Barbara's numbers. Yes or no? Leonard's face went red. Yes. And were those numbers accurate? I believe they were at the time. They weren't. We have the actual time cards. We have the payroll records. We have proof that you and Ms. Hastings knowingly lied to federal auditors about staffing levels. And you're here trying to convince this court that Jenna Raines is the problem? Sterling was on his feet. Your Honor, this is a wrongful termination hearing, not a criminal trial. It should be, Marcus said quietly. No further questions. Leonard practically ran from the stand. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Moreno banged her gavel twice, hard enough that the sound echoed off the walls. When the room finally quieted, she looked at both tables with an expression that could have frozen fire. We're taking a 30-minute recess, she said. When we return, I expect both parties to be prepared for my ruling. This case has gone on long enough. She stood and disappeared through the door behind her bench. The moment she was gone, the courtroom exploded again, reporters rushing for the exits, Barbara's lawyers huddling together in urgent conversation, hospital staff whispering to each other with wide eyes. Jenna just sat there, her hands shaking in her lap. Marcus leaned over. That went better than I expected. Did it? Briggs just admitted to everything we needed him to admit. The judge saw it. The whole room saw it. So what happens now? Now we wait. They walked out into the hallway. Agent Frost was already on her phone, pacing back and forth with her free hand gesturing sharply. When she saw them, she ended the call and walked over. The U.S. Attorney's Office just greenlit the investigation, she said. Full criminal probe. Briggs and Hastings are officially targets. Jenna felt the floor shift beneath her. Already? Judge Moreno made some calls during the recess. When a federal judge tells the U.S. attorney that something smells like fraud, they listen. Marcus smiled, the first genuine one Jenna had seen from him in days. It's over. It's not over, Frost corrected, but it's close. The 30 minutes crawled past. Jenna bought a coffee from a vending machine that tasted like burnt plastic and stood by a window overlooking the parking lot, watching people come and go like life was still normal for them. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Everyone's talking about it at school. Are you winning? Jenna stared at the words for a long time before typing back. I think so. I'll know soon. I'm proud of you, Mom. Jenna had to blink hard to keep from crying right there in the courthouse hallway. The bailiff called them back inside. Everyone filed in, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Judge Moreno returned to her bench, her expression unreadable. She adjusted her glasses, looked down at a stack of papers in front of her, then looked up at the courtroom. I've reviewed the evidence presented over the last 2 days, she began. I've heard testimony from both sides, and I've come to a conclusion. The room went silent. Ms. Hastings, your complaint alleges wrongful termination and defamation, but the evidence shows something very different. It shows a pattern of mismanagement, fraudulent reporting, and retaliation against employees who attempted to report violations. The email you sent demoting Ms. Raines, sent before you could have known the outcome of the medical emergency she was responding to, demonstrates that your actions were punitive, not procedural. Barbara's face had gone pale. Her lawyers were scribbling notes frantically. Furthermore, Judge Moreno continued, Dr. Briggs's testimony this morning confirmed that Mercy Hill Regional Medical Center was operating with dangerously inadequate staffing levels, that funding meant for patient care was redirected elsewhere, and that both you and he were aware of these violations. This isn't a case of wrongful termination. This is evidence of criminal fraud. She picked up her gavel. I'm dismissing your complaint with prejudice, Ms. Hastings. You will not be able to refile. Additionally, I'm referring this matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. Both you and Dr. Briggs should expect to be contacted by federal investigators in the very near future. Well, the gavel came down. The sound cracked through the courtroom like thunder. Barbara stood up, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound coming out. Sterling was already gathering his files, his expression grim. The other lawyers looked like they wanted to disappear. Judge Moreno turned to Jenna. Ms. Raines, I want to be clear about something. This ruling doesn't erase what you've been through. It doesn't give you back the nights you couldn't sleep, or the doubt you carried, or the fear that no one would believe you. But it does say this. You were right. You were right to report the violations. You were right to save that man's life. And you were right to refuse to walk away when it would have been easier. She paused, and for a moment, something that looked like emotion flickered across her face. The court thanks you for your service, both to your country and to your patients. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down one final time, and then it was over. Jenna stood on legs that didn't quite feel like her own. Around her, the courtroom erupted, reporters rushing out to file their stories, Barbara being escorted away by her lawyers, hospital staff staring at each other in shock. Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. You did it, he said quietly. We did it, Jenna corrected. Agent Frost appeared beside them. We need to get you out of here before the media circus gets worse. There's a back exit through the judge's chambers. Judge Moreno said we could use it. They followed her through a side door, down a narrow hallway that smelled like old carpet and legal documents, out into a parking lot where Marcus's car was already waiting. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Jenna finally spoke. What happens now? Now the real work starts, Marcus said. The criminal investigation will take months, maybe longer. But in the meantime, Mercy Hill needs a functioning administration. The board is going to have to make some decisions. About what? About who's going to run the place while they clean house. Jenna looked at him. You think they'll keep me on? I think after today they don't have much choice. Her phone started ringing. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Raines? A man's voice, formal but not unfriendly. This is Gerald Whitmore. I'm the chairman of Mercy Hill's board of directors. I was hoping we could meet. Tonight, if possible. Jenna looked at Marcus. He nodded. What time? She asked. 7 o'clock. My office. And Ms. Raines? Bring Mr. Holloway with you. The line went dead. They spent the rest of the afternoon at Marcus's office, going over documents and preparing for whatever the board wanted to discuss. Agent Frost came and went, making calls and coordinating with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Around 6, Jenna's phone buzzed with another text from Lily. Mom, it's on the news. They're saying you won. Jenna typed back. Not done yet. But we're close. When will you be home? Late. Order pizza. My card should work now. It did. I already ordered. Love you, Mom. Love you too. At 7 exactly, they walked into Gerald Whitmore's office, a space that looked like it belonged in a different century, all dark wood and leather chairs and windows that overlooked the city. Gerald sat behind his desk, flanked by 2 other board members Jenna didn't recognize. All 3 of them looked like they'd aged 10 years in the last 48 hours. Ms. Raines, Mr. Holloway, thank you for coming. Gerald gestured to the chairs across from him. Please, sit. They sat. Gerald folded his hands on his desk and took a breath. I'm not going to waste your time with apologies, he said. What happened at Mercy Hill happened on our watch. We should have caught it. We should have stopped it. We didn't. And now we're paying the price. Is there a point to this? Marcus asked. Gerald's jaw tightened. The point is that we need help. The federal investigation is going to tear this hospital apart. The media is already circling. Staff morale is in the toilet. And we've got exactly 0 credibility left with anyone who matters. Again, Marcus said. Your point? We want Ms. Raines to stay on as interim director of nursing. Full authority to rebuild the department however she sees fit. We'll triple her current salary, provide whatever resources she needs, and give her a seat on the board. The room went quiet. Jenna stared at Gerald, trying to process what she'd just heard. "You want me to fix the mess you made?" she said finally. "We want you to run the department the way it should have been run from the beginning." "Why would I do that? Why would I stay at a hospital that spent 8 years trying to bury me?" Gerald met her eyes. "Because you're the only person left who actually cares whether the patients live or die." Jenna looked at Marcus. He shrugged. "Your call." She turned back to Gerald. "I want full hiring authority. I want a commitment in writing that the nursing budget will be protected for the next 5 years. I want every single person who knew about the fraud and did nothing to stop it gone. And I want a formal apology issued to every nurse who's been working understaffed for the last 3 years." Gerald glanced at the other board members. They nodded. "Done," he said. "And one more thing," Jenna added. "Rita Chambers gets promoted to assistant director. She's been holding that ER together with duct tape and willpower while the rest of you collected paychecks. If I'm staying, she gets recognized for it." Gerald smiled, tired but genuine. "Also done." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. "This is the contract. Have your lawyer look it over. If you agree to the terms, we can have you officially instated by Monday." Jenna took the folder but didn't open it. "I'll think about it. That's all we're asking." They left Gerald's office and walked out into a night that felt different somehow, clearer, sharper, like someone had finally turned on the lights. Marcus drove her home in silence, and when they pulled up in front of her apartment, he turned to look at her. "You're going to take it," he said. "How do you know?" "Because you're not the kind of person who walks away when there's still work to do." Jenna smiled. "You barely know me." "I know enough." She got out of the car and walked up to her apartment. Lily was on the couch watching TV, pizza boxes scattered across the coffee table. When she saw her mother, she jumped up and wrapped her arms around her. "You did it," Lily said into her shoulder. "We're not done yet." "But you won." Jenna held her daughter and realized that for the first time in 3 years, she actually believed it. Not because a judge had ruled in her favor or because Barbara Hastings was going to face criminal charges, but because she'd stood up and refused to disappear, and somehow that had been enough. They ordered more pizza and stayed up late watching terrible movies, and for a few hours, Jenna let herself forget about courtrooms and contracts and all the ways her life was about to change. But around midnight, after Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, Jenna sat down at the kitchen table and opened the folder Gerald had given her. The contract was 12 pages long, full of legal language she'd need Marcus to translate. But the salary number at the bottom made her heart stop. It was more money than she'd thought possible. More than enough to fix the car, pay off the credit cards, send Lily to college without loans. More than enough to finally breathe. She was still staring at it when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You think you've won. You haven't. This isn't over." Jenna's blood went cold. She stared at the message, her mind racing. The number wasn't saved in her contacts. She didn't recognize it, but she knew exactly who it was from. Another message appeared. "Watch your back, Jenna. People like you don't get happy endings." Her hands were shaking. She stood up, checked the locks on the front door, looked in on Lily to make sure she was still sleeping. Everything was fine. Everything was safe. But the messages kept coming. "You destroyed my life. Now I'm going to destroy yours. Your daughter's school is Lincoln Middle, right? Pretty campus. Sleep well tonight. It might be your last chance." Jenna's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She grabbed her phone and dialed Marcus's number. He answered on the first ring. "Jenna? What's wrong?" "I'm getting threats. Text messages. Someone's threatening Lily." "Forward them to me right now. Don't respond. Don't engage. I'm calling Agent Frost." Jenna forwarded the messages with shaking fingers. Outside, a car drove past slowly, its headlights sweeping across her living room wall. She moved to the window and watched it disappear around the corner. Her phone rang. Agent Frost. "Ms. Raines, I just saw the messages. Are you and your daughter safe right now?" "We're home. Doors are locked." "I'm sending a patrol car to your location. They'll be there in 5 minutes. Don't open the door for anyone except law enforcement. Do you understand?" "Yes." "We're going to find out who sent these. In the meantime, I need you to stay calm and stay inside." The call ended. Jenna stood by the window, watching the street, her mind spinning through possibilities. Barbara was in custody. Briggs had resigned. Who else would? Another text. 5 minutes, huh? That's how long it takes for everything to fall apart. Jenna's blood turned to ice. Whoever this was, they were watching. They were close. She ran to Lily's room and shook her daughter awake. "Mom, what's wrong? We need to go, right now." "What? Why?" "No time. Shoes, phone. Let's go." They were halfway to the front door when Jenna heard it. Footsteps on the stairs outside. Heavy. Deliberate. Getting closer. She grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the back of the apartment, toward the fire escape she'd never actually used. Her phone was ringing, Agent Frost again, but she couldn't answer, couldn't stop moving. The footsteps stopped outside her door. Someone knocked. 3 times. Slow. Purposeful. Jenna pushed Lily toward the window that led to the fire escape, her hands fumbling with the lock. Behind them, the doorknob started to turn. The lock on the fire escape window wouldn't budge. Jenna's fingers slipped on the metal, her breath coming in short gasps as the doorknob behind them continued to turn. Lily was pressed against her back, trembling. "Mom!" "Quiet." The door swung open. Jenna spun around, putting herself between her daughter and whoever was coming through, her hands already reaching for anything she could use as a weapon. A lamp, a chair, anything. A uniformed police officer stepped into the doorway, his hand on his holster, his eyes scanning the room. "Ms. Rains, Ashford PD, Agent Frost sent us." Jenna's legs nearly gave out. "How did you get in?" "Your landlord let us in downstairs. We need to get you and your daughter out of here now." Another officer appeared behind him, a woman, older, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She moved past Jenna to the window, checking the fire escape, then turned back. "Clear, but we need to move. Whoever sent those texts knows this address." They went down the back stairs, the 2 officers flanking them like bodyguards. Outside, 2 patrol cars sat with their lights off, engines running. The female officer, her nameplate read Davies, opened the back door of one and ushered Lily inside. Jenna started to follow, but Davies put a hand on her arm. "Different car. Protocol." "I'm not leaving my daughter." "You're not. She's going to a safe location. You're going somewhere else. If someone's tracking you, we don't put you both in the same place." Jenna looked at Lily through the window. Her daughter's face was pale, scared, too young to be dealing with any of this. "It's okay, Mom," Lily said, though her voice shook. "I'll be okay." The car pulled away before Jenna could argue. She watched the taillights disappear around the corner, then let Davies guide her into the second vehicle. They drove in silence through streets that were too empty, too dark, until they pulled into the parking garage of a building Jenna recognized, the federal courthouse. Agent Frost was waiting by the elevator, her expression grim. "Your daughter's safe," she said before Jenna could ask. "She's with 2 agents at a secure facility. No one knows where except me and them." "Who's doing this?" "We don't know yet. The texts came from a burner phone. We're trying to trace the location, but whoever this is knows what they're doing." They took the elevator to the 3rd floor, down a hallway that smelled like coffee and stress, into a conference room where Marcus was already waiting. He stood up when Jenna walked in. "You okay?" "No." He nodded like that was the answer he'd expected. "We need to talk about what happens next." Frost closed the door and pulled out a laptop. The text started 17 minutes after Judge Moreno's ruling was made public. That's not a coincidence. Whoever this is, they were watching the courtroom or monitoring the news. "Barbara's in federal custody," Jenna said. "It can't be her. Her lawyers posted bail 2 hours ago. She's out." The words hit Jenna like a punch. "What?" "White-collar crime, no prior record, strong community ties. The judge set bail at $500,000. Her family posted it." Marcus swore under his breath. "So she's out there right now. And extremely motivated," Frost added. "We're pulling her phone records, tracking her movements. But in the meantime, you're a target." Jenna sat down, her hands shaking. "What do you want me to do?" "Stay here tonight. We've got a safe rooms on the 5th floor. Tomorrow, we'll figure out next steps." "I can't hide forever. You won't have to. We're going to find whoever sent those texts, but until we do, you need to stay out of sight. Jenna wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She let Frost lead her to a room that looked more like a hotel than a courthouse. A bed, a bathroom, a window that overlooked the city. Marcus stayed in the doorway. "Get some sleep," he said. "We'll talk in the morning." Marcus? Yeah? Thank you for all of this. He nodded and closed the door. Jenna didn't sleep. She lay on the bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, her phone clutched in one hand. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the doorknob turning, heard those footsteps getting closer. Around 3 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her heart stopped. She opened it. "This is Lily. They gave me a phone. I'm safe. The agents are nice. Try to sleep, Mom." Jenna read it 3 times, then typed back, "I love you. I'll see you soon." "I know. I love you too." She set the phone down and finally let herself cry. Not the ugly kind, just quiet tears that came from somewhere deep and exhausted. She cried for about 5 minutes, then wiped her face and got up. There was work to do. She found Marcus in the conference room, surrounded by files and coffee cups. He looked up when she walked in. "You're supposed to be sleeping." "Can't." She sat down across from him. "What are you working on?" "Going through Barbara's financial records. Agent Frost got a warrant." He pushed a stack of papers toward her. "Look at this." Jenna scanned the documents, bank statements, credit card bills, wire transfers. Nothing jumped out until she got to a series of withdrawals from the last 48 hours. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, all cash. "She's liquidating," Jenna said, "or paying someone." Marcus pulled out another sheet. "These are her phone records from the last week. Look at the calls made after the judge's ruling." Jenna looked. 12 calls to the same number, all of them lasting less than 30 seconds. "Did you trace it?" "Frost is working on it. But whoever she's calling is using the same kind of burner setup as the person who texted you. You think she hired someone? I think she's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things." Jenna's phone buzzed. "Agent Frost. We got a hit on the burner phone location. Northeast corner of Ashford, near the industrial district. Sending units now." Jenna showed Marcus the text. He was already standing, grabbing his jacket. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To see what they find." "I'm coming with you." "Jenna, don't. My daughter's in hiding because of this. I'm not sitting here waiting for updates." He stared at her for a moment, then nodded. "Let's go." They took Marcus's car, following 3 patrol vehicles through streets that got progressively darker and more desolate. The industrial district was a wasteland of abandoned warehouses and chain-link fences, the kind of place where people went when they didn't want to be found. The patrol cars stopped in front of a building with boarded-up windows and graffiti covering every surface. Frost was already there, talking to a tactical team in body armor. When she saw Jenna, her expression hardened. "You shouldn't be here." "Too bad." Frost looked like she wanted to argue, but the tactical team leader interrupted. "We're ready to breach." "Do it." They moved like a machine. 4 officers hitting the door with a battering ram, the rest flooding in with weapons raised and flashlights cutting through the darkness. Jenna stayed behind with Marcus and Frost, her heart pounding as they waited for the all clear. It came 30 seconds later. "Building's empty, but you need to see this." They walked inside. The smell hit Jenna first. Chemical, acrid, like something had been burning recently. The main room was empty except for a folding table and 2 chairs. On the table sat a laptop, still open, the screen glowing in the darkness. Frost walked over and looked at it. Her expression changed. "What is it?" Jenna asked. Frost turned the laptop so they could see. The screen showed a video feed, grainy, black and white, but clear enough to recognize. It was Jenna's apartment building. The camera was pointed at her front door. "They've been watching you," Frost said quietly. "For how long, we don't know." Marcus leaned closer. "Can you trace where this feed is going?" "Already working on it." Frost pulled out her phone and made a call. While she talked, Jenna walked around the room, looking for anything else they might have left behind. She found it in the corner, a trash can with burned papers inside, still warm to the touch. She pulled one out carefully. Most of it was ash, but a few words were still legible. Final payment upon completion. Target neutralized. No witnesses. Jenna's blood went cold. She showed it to Marcus. "This isn't just harassment," she said. "Someone put a hit out on me." Marcus took the paper, his jaw tight. "Frost, we need to move Jenna, now." But Frost was still on the phone, her expression growing darker by the second. When she hung up, she looked at Jenna with something that might have been fear. The video feed was being sent to 3 locations. One of them is Barbara Hastings' home address. One is an IP address we're still tracing. And the third, she paused, the third is inside Mercy Hill Hospital, administrator's wing. The room went silent. "Who's still in administration?" Jenna asked. "Most of them were fired," Marcus said, "but not all." Frost was already making another call. "I need a warrant for Mercy Hill Regional Medical Center. Administrator's wing, all computers, all personnel files, and I need it 10 minutes ago." They raced back across town, Frost's car leading a convoy of federal vehicles and local police. The sun was starting to rise as they pulled into Mercy Hill's parking lot, painting the sky in shades of orange that reminded Jenna of the desert. The hospital was just starting to wake up. Early shift nurses arriving, maintenance staff unlocking doors, security guards drinking coffee by the entrance. They all stopped and stared as federal agents poured out of unmarked cars and headed for the main entrance. Frost showed her badge to the security guard. "We have a warrant. Nobody leaves this building until we're done." The guard stammered something about protocols. Frost ignored him and walked past. They took the elevator to the 4th floor, the administrator's wing that Jenna had only been to a handful of times. Most of the offices were dark, but one had a light on. Frost motioned for the tactical team to hold position, then knocked on the door. "Federal agents, open up." No response. Frost tried the handle. Locked. "Breach it." The door splintered under the battering ram. Inside, a man sat at a desk with a computer in front of him, his hands frozen on the keyboard. Jenna recognized him immediately. Thomas Carr, the hospital's CFO. The same man who'd been escorted out by federal agents days ago, who'd supposedly resigned. "Mr. Carr," Frost said calmly. "Step away from the computer." Thomas didn't move. His eyes darted to the window, then to the door, calculating odds that weren't in his favor. "Don't even think about it," Frost said. Thomas stood up slowly, his hands raised. 2 agents moved in and cuffed him. Frost walked over to the computer and looked at the screen. Her expression went flat. "You've been monitoring surveillance feeds, plural." Thomas said nothing. "Not just Ms. Rain's apartment. You've got cameras on her car, on her daughter's school, on the courthouse." Frost turned to look at him. "Who hired you?" Silence. "We've got your phone records. We've got your bank accounts. We've got everything we need to put you away for the rest of your life. So you can talk now and maybe get a deal, or you can stay quiet and take the fall alone. Your choice." Thomas's face crumbled. "She said it was just surveillance, just to know where Rains was. Nothing else." "Who?" "Barbara Hastings. She said she just needed to know if Rains was coming after her, if she was safe. She paid me $50,000. $50,000 to install cameras? And to hire someone, if things got worse." Frost leaned against the desk. "Hire someone to do what, Thomas?" He wouldn't look at her. "I don't know. I just gave her the contact. I didn't ask questions." "The contact for who?" "A guy. Someone she knew from before. Someone who did jobs?" Jenna felt like the floor had dropped out. "What kind of jobs?" Thomas finally looked at her and she saw something in his eyes that made her stomach turn. Fear, guilt, and underneath it all, the realization that he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't think she'd actually—" "What kind of jobs?" Jenna repeated, her voice hard. Thomas closed his eyes. "The kind that make problems disappear." Frost grabbed her phone. "I need units at Barbara Hastings' residence, now. Arrest on site, armed and dangerous." She hung up and turned to Jenna. "We're getting you out of here. Protective custody until we have Barbara in custody." "What about Lily?" "She stays where she is. She's safe." "You don't know that." Yes, I do. The only people who know her location are me and the two agents protecting her. Not even Marcus knows. So unless you want to put her at risk by moving her, she stays put. Jenna wanted to argue, but Frost was right. Moving Lily now would only create more exposure, more chances for something to go wrong. They left Mercy Hill under armed escort, 3 cars moving in formation through morning traffic. Jenna sat in the back of Frost's vehicle, watching the city pass by, her mind racing through possibilities she didn't want to consider. Barbara had hired someone who did jobs, someone who made problems disappear. And Jenna was the problem. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Static, breathing. Then a voice she recognized. Hello, Jenna. Barbara. Jenna's hand tightened on the phone. Where are you? Somewhere safe. For now. Barbara's voice was calm, almost conversational. I wanted to call before this gets messier than it needs to be. You hired someone to kill me. I hired someone to scare you. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting. No, I suppose not. Barbara sighed, and for a moment she sounded tired. You ruined my life, Jenna. 23 years I gave to that hospital. 23 years of my life, and you destroyed it in a week. You destroyed it yourself. I just made sure people found out. Semantics. Barbara's voice hardened. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off the investigation. You're going to tell the U.S. attorney that you made a mistake, that the evidence was misinterpreted, that I'm innocent. I'm not doing that. Then your daughter dies. The world stopped. Jenna couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except hold the phone and try to remember how her lungs worked. You're bluffing, she managed. Am I? Lincoln Middle School, right? She's in Ms. Patterson's homeroom. Sits in the 3rd row, 2 seats from the window. She's wearing a blue hoodie today, or at least she was when she left the safe house 20 minutes ago. Jenna felt her heart stop. That's not possible. Nobody knows. Thomas Carr wasn't the only person I paid, Jenna. I've been planning this for days. And right now, my associate is watching your daughter walk into school like it's a normal day. One phone call from me and she disappears. You'll never find her. Do you understand? Jenna looked at Frost, who was watching her in the rear-view mirror. She mouthed the word Barbara, and Frost's expression changed instantly. She pulled out her own phone and started typing. What do you want? Jenna asked. I already told you. Call off the investigation. Tell them I'm innocent. Get me my job back. That's not going to happen. Then say goodbye to Lily. The line went dead. Jenna stared at the phone, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Frost had pulled over, was already on her phone, barking orders to someone. We need units at Lincoln Middle School right now. Possible threat to a student. Lily Raines, 12 years old, blue hoodie, and find out how the hell Barbara Hastings knew she left the safe house. She hung up and turned to look at Jenna. We're going to find her, I promise. She said 20 minutes ago, if Barbara's telling the truth, Barbara's a liar and a criminal. For all we know, she's guessing. But Jenna could hear the doubt in Frost's voice, could see it in the way her hands gripped the steering wheel as she pulled back into traffic, driving faster than she should have been, running red lights with the siren blaring. They made it to Lincoln Middle School in 8 minutes. The parking lot was full of police cars, officers everywhere, teachers standing outside looking confused and scared. Frost jumped out before the car had fully stopped, Jenna right behind her. A uniformed officer met them at the entrance. We've got the school on lockdown. No one in or out. We're checking every classroom. Lily Raines, Frost said. Have you found her? Still looking. They ran inside. The hallways were empty, eerily quiet except for the sound of their footsteps echoing off the lockers. Frost was on a radio, coordinating with the officers searching the building. Jenna felt like she was moving through water, everything slow and distorted and wrong. They found Ms. Patterson's homeroom on the 2nd floor. The door was open. Inside, 23 students sat at their desks, all of them staring at the police officers who were searching the room. Jenna scanned the faces. No Lily. Where is she? She asked the teacher. Ms. Patterson looked terrified. Who? Lily Raines. She's in this class. I know who she is, but she's not here today. She didn't show up. Jenna's legs almost gave out. Frost caught her arm, steadied her. When was the last time anyone saw her? Frost asked. Yesterday? She left right after final bell. Frost pulled out her phone and called the safe house. Jenna watched her expression change from tense to confused to something that looked like fear. What? Jenna asked. Frost lowered the phone. The agents at the safe house say Lily never left. She's still there. That's not possible. Barbara said. Barbara lied. Frost looked at the teacher. Do you have security cameras in this school? In the hallways, not the classrooms. Show me. They ran to the main office. The principal pulled up the security footage from that morning, scrubbing through until they found what they were looking for. The timestamp read 7:42 a.m. A girl in a blue hoodie walked through the front entrance, head down, backpack over her shoulder. Jenna leaned closer. That's not Lily. The girl looked similar, same height, same build, same hoodie, but it wasn't her daughter. Barbara used a decoy, Frost said quietly. She wanted you to think Lily was in danger, so you'd... Her phone rang. She answered it, listened for 5 seconds, then hung up with an expression that made Jenna's blood run cold. Barbara Hastings just walked into Mercy Hill Hospital. Alone. She's asking to see you. They made it back to Mercy Hill in 10 minutes. The hospital had been evacuated, patients moved to other facilities, staff sent home, the entire building locked down except for one entrance where federal agents stood guard. Barbara sat in the main lobby, her hands folded in her lap, her expression calm. When Jenna walked in with Frost and Marcus, Barbara smiled. There you are. I was starting to think you wouldn't come. What do you want? Jenna asked. To talk, just you and me. No lawyers, no agents, 5 minutes. Frost stepped forward. That's not happening. Then I walk out of here and you never find the person I hired. The one who's still out there, still watching, still waiting for my signal. Barbara's smile widened. Your choice. Jenna looked at Frost. Give us 5 minutes. Jenna, 5 minutes, that's all. Frost didn't like it, but she nodded. She and Marcus stepped back, far enough to give them privacy, but close enough to intervene if things went wrong. Jenna sat down across from Barbara. Up close, she could see the cracks, the exhaustion, the fear, the desperation that came from watching everything fall apart. You can't win this, Jenna said quietly. You know that, right? Maybe, but I can make you lose. Barbara leaned forward. You think you're a hero. You think saving that man's life makes you special, but you're not special, Jenna. You're just stubborn, and stubbornness gets people killed. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You could have taken the settlement. You could have walked away with enough money to set your daughter up for life. But you chose this instead. You chose to destroy me. I chose to tell the truth. The truth? Barbara laughed, bitter and sharp. The truth is that hospitals are businesses. They run on money, not idealism. And people like you who think you can save everyone are the reason the system breaks down. You can't save everyone, Jenna. Eventually, you have to make choices. You have to decide who lives and who dies. And when that happens, you become just like me. I'll never be like you. We'll see. Barbara stood up. Here's what I came to tell you. The person I hired, I don't know who they are. I paid Thomas Carr, and he made the arrangements. So even if you arrest me, even if you lock me up for the rest of my life, that person is still out there, and they're still coming for you. She walked toward the door. Frost moved to intercept her, but Barbara held up her hands. I'm turning myself in. No need for dramatics. Two agents cuffed her and led her away. Jenna sat in the empty lobby, her hands shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Marcus sat down beside her. She's lying, he said. About not knowing who she hired. She's just trying to scare you. It's working. We're going to find them. Frost has the best people on this. We'll trace the money, find the connection, shut this down. And in the meantime, you stay in protective custody. You stay safe. Jenna looked at him. For how long? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. They took her back to the courthouse, back to the safe room on the 5th floor. Frost stationed 2 agents outside the door, and promised to call the moment they had any updates. Jenna sat on the bed and stared at her phone, waiting for news that didn't come. Around noon, Marcus knocked and came in with food she didn't want to eat. They sat in silence for a while, picking at sandwiches neither of them had an appetite for. "I talked to the hospital board," Marcus said finally. "They still want you to take the position. Director of nursing, full authority. They'll provide security if needed." "If needed," Jenna repeated. "Someone wants me dead, Marcus. Security isn't going to fix that." "So what do you want to do?" She thought about it. About walking away, taking Lily, disappearing somewhere Barbara Hastings and her hired killer couldn't find them. Starting over in a new city with new names and new lives. "I want to finish what I started," she said. Marcus smiled, sad but genuine. "I was hoping you'd say that." Her phone buzzed. "Agent Frost. We traced the money. Thomas Carr paid someone through an offshore account. Still working on the name, but we're close." Another text came through immediately after. "Lily's asking for you. Want me to set up a video call?" Jenna typed back, "Yes, please." 2 minutes later, her phone rang with a video call. She answered it, and Lily's face filled the screen, tired but alive, safe in a room Jenna didn't recognize. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, baby. You okay?" "I'm bored. These agents won't let me watch anything good on TV." Jenna laughed despite everything. "I'll be there soon, I promise." "When?" "I don't know, but soon." Lily nodded, and Jenna could see she was trying to be brave, trying not to cry. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Jenna thought about lying, about telling her daughter that everything was fine and nothing bad was going to happen. But Lily deserved better than that. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we are. That's all I need to hear." The call ended. Jenna sat there holding her phone, staring at the black screen, and felt something shift inside her. She was tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of letting people like Barbara Hastings control her life. She stood up and walked out of the room. The 2 agents outside the door looked startled. "Ms. Raines, you need to stay. I need to talk to Agent Frost. Now." They escorted her downstairs to the conference room where Frost was surrounded by laptops and agents and the organized chaos of an active investigation. When she saw Jenna, she stood up. "What's wrong?" "I want to help. Whatever you're doing to find this person, I want to be part of it." "Jenna, that's not how this works." "Then make it work. I'm not sitting in a room waiting for you to solve this. If someone's coming after me, I want to see them coming." Frost looked at Marcus, who'd followed Jenna downstairs. He shrugged. "She's right," he said. "Sitting around waiting is how you lose." Frost sighed and gestured to an empty chair. "Fine. But you follow my rules, you do exactly what I say, and if I tell you to back off, you back off. Understood?" Jenna sat down. "Understood." "Good." Frost pulled up a file on her laptop. "Here's what we know. Thomas Carr transferred $50,000 to an offshore account registered in the Cayman Islands 3 days ago. The account was created specifically for this transaction, which means whoever we're looking for is a professional. They know how to cover their tracks. Can you trace it? We're working on it, but these things take time. How much time? Days, maybe weeks. We don't have weeks." Frost met her eyes. "I know." One of the other agents, a young guy with glasses, looked up from his computer. "Agent Frost, I think I found something." Everyone turned. The agent pulled up a series of emails on the main screen. "These are from Thomas Carr's personal account. Most of them are routine, hospital business, vendor contacts, that kind of thing. But 3 days ago, he got an email from an encrypted address. No subject line, just coordinates." "Coordinates to what?" Marcus asked. The agent pulled up a map. "An address here in Ashford, Warehouse District, same area where we found the surveillance equipment." Frost was already on her feet. "Get me a tactical team, full gear, we move in 20 minutes. Jenna stood up. "I'm coming." "Absolutely not. If this is the person Barbara hired, I need to see who they are. I need to know. And if it's a trap, if they're waiting for you to show up, then you'll be there to make sure I don't die." Frost stared at her for a long moment, then swore under her breath. "You stay in the car. You don't get out unless I say so. And if shooting starts, you hit the floor. Deal? Deal. They drove across town in a convoy of unmarked vehicles, the tactical team following in a black van that looked like it belonged in a war zone. The warehouse district looked even more desolate in daylight. Empty streets, broken windows, the kind of neighborhood where people minded their own business because asking questions got you hurt. The coordinates led them to a building at the end of a dead-end street. 3 stories of crumbling brick with bars on the windows and a rusted fire escape hanging off one side. The tactical team moved into position, surrounding the building, cutting off every exit. Frost turned to look at Jenna. "Stay here. I mean it." She got out and joined the tactical team. Jenna watched through the car window as they approached the building, weapons raised, moving in perfect synchronization. The front door was locked. They breached it with a battering ram, the sound echoing down the empty street. Silence. Then shouting. Then more silence. Jenna's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it, her heart pounding. She knew she shouldn't answer, knew it was probably another threat, another mind game from Barbara or whoever she'd hired. She answered it anyway. "Hello?" A voice she didn't recognize, male, calm, almost bored. "Ms. Raines, I was wondering when you'd show up." "Who is this?" "Someone who's being paid a lot of money to make sure you don't testify. But here's the thing, I've been doing some research on you. Combat medic. Saved 43 lives, decorated for valor." "That's impressive." "What do you want?" "To give you a choice. You can walk away right now, get in that car, drive to the airport, take your daughter, and disappear. I'll tell Barbara Hastings the job's done. She'll never know the difference. Or I do what I was hired to do, and your daughter becomes an orphan." Jenna looked at the warehouse. The tactical team was still inside. Frost was nowhere to be seen. "Why are you offering me a way out?" she asked. "Because I don't kill people who don't deserve it, and from what I've seen, you're just someone who told the truth at the wrong time. That's not worth dying for." "But it is worth living for." The man on the phone was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, short and sharp. "You're going to get yourself killed. You know that?" "Probably, but at least I'll die knowing I didn't run." "Your funeral." The line went dead. Jenna got out of the car. She knew Frost would be furious, knew she was breaking every rule they'd agreed to, but she wasn't going to sit in a car while someone else decided whether she lived or died. She walked toward the warehouse, her footsteps echoing on the broken pavement. The front door was open, hanging on one hinge. Inside, the building was dark and empty, just concrete floors and exposed beams and the smell of decay. She found Frost on the second floor, standing in the middle of an empty room with her weapon still drawn. "I told you to stay in the car," Frost said without turning around. "I know." "This place is empty. Whoever was here is long gone." Jenna looked around. The room was bare except for a single folding chair in the center. On the chair sat a phone, the same burner model that had been used to send her the threats. Frost picked it up carefully. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. She scrolled through the call log, and Jenna saw her own number listed there, the call from 30 seconds ago. "They were here," Frost said quietly. "They were watching us the whole time." Jenna walked to the window. From here, she could see the street below, the unmarked cars, the tactical team spreading out to search the surrounding buildings. And beyond that, the city of Ashford spreading out in every direction, full of places to hide and people who didn't ask questions. "They're not going to stop," she said. "No," Frost agreed. "They're not. So what do we do?" Frost turned to look at her, and for the first time, Jenna saw something in her expression that looked like respect. "We stop running," Frost said, "and we make them come to us." The plan was simple in theory, dangerous in execution. Frost wanted to use Jenna as bait, put her somewhere visible. Somewhere the hired killer would have to come out of hiding to reach her and catch them in the act. Marcus hated it. Jenna agreed to it anyway. They spent the next 12 hours preparing. Frost brought in a team of undercover agents, set up surveillance on every entrance to Mercy Hill Hospital, wired Jenna with a tracking device small enough to hide under her shirt. The hospital would reopen tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., business as usual, except for the 20 federal agents hidden throughout the building. "You'll go to your office," Frost explained, pointing to a floor plan spread across the conference table. You'll act like you're working. We'll have eyes on you the entire time. The second this person makes a move, we take them down. And if they don't make a move, Jenna asked, then we wait. But they will. Barbara's bail hearing is in 3 days. Once she's back in custody, her leverage disappears. They'll want to finish this before that happens. Marcus paced by the window, his expression dark. This is insane. You're putting her in the middle of a target zone. We're putting her in a controlled environment where we have every advantage, Frost corrected. It's the safest way to end this. There is no safe way to use someone as bait. Do you have a better idea? He didn't. None of them did. That night, Jenna stayed in the safe room again, but sleep was impossible. She kept thinking about the voice on the phone. Calm, professional. Someone who killed people for money, but apparently had standards about who deserved it. She wondered if those standards would hold when the moment came, or if money would win like it always did. Around 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. A text from Lily, sent from whatever secure phone the agents had given her. Mom, I'm scared, Jenna typed back immediately. Me too, but we're going to get through this. Promise? Jenna stared at the word for a long time before responding. Promise. She didn't know if it was a lie. She hoped it wasn't. Morning came too fast. Jenna, dressed in the same borrowed suit she'd worn to court, checked the tracking device Frost had given her, and tried to eat breakfast she couldn't taste. Marcus drove her to the hospital in silence, both of them too tense to make small talk. Mercy Hill looked different in the early light, quieter, emptier, like a building holding its breath. Most of the staff had been told to stay home for another day, while the federal investigation continued. The ones who showed up were undercover agents with fake credentials and weapons hidden under their scrubs. Jenna walked through the main entrance with her ID badge displayed, past security guards who were really FBI, into an elevator that went to the 4th floor. Her office was at the end of the hall, a small room with a desk, a window overlooking the parking lot, and a door that locked from the inside. Frost's voice crackled through the earpiece they'd given her. We've got you. 3 agents in the hallway, 2 in the office next door, 1 in the stairwell. You're covered. Jenna sat down at the desk and turned on the computer. The screen came to life showing the standard hospital login. She typed in her credentials, the same ones she'd used for 8 years, before any of this started, and waited for the system to load. Files appeared. Patient records, staffing schedules, budget reports that Barbara had falsified for years. Jenna opened one at random and started reading, trying to look busy, trying to ignore the fact that somewhere in this building, someone was watching her. An hour passed, then 2. Nothing happened. Frost's voice came through the earpiece again. We've got movement. South entrance. Male, mid-30s, wearing a maintenance uniform. He's not one of ours. Jenna's heart started pounding. Where is he now? 2nd floor. Heading for the stairs. Do I stay here? Yes. Let him come to you. Jenna forced herself to keep reading the files on her screen, even though the words didn't register anymore. She could hear footsteps in the hallway outside, slow, deliberate, getting closer. The footsteps stopped outside her door. Jenna held her breath. Through the frosted glass, she could see a shadow, someone standing there, waiting. The doorknob turned. Jenna's hand moved to the panic button Frost had given her, but before she could press it, the door opened and a man walked in. Not the killer, not a threat. Just a janitor with a cleaning cart, looking tired and confused. Sorry, he said. Thought this office was empty. Jenna exhaled. It's fine. Come back later. He nodded and left, pulling the cart behind him. Jenna waited until the door closed, then pressed the earpiece. False alarm. Just a cleaner. Copy that. Stay alert. Another hour passed. Jenna's coffee went cold. Her back started to ache from sitting in the same position. She checked her phone. No messages, no updates, just the slowly advancing time that felt like it was mocking her. At noon, Frost called the whole thing off. We're pulling back, she said. Whoever this person is, they're not taking the bait. Maybe they know it's a trap, Marcus said. Maybe. Or maybe they're waiting for a better opportunity. They regrouped in the conference room on the 5th floor, the same room where Jenna had signed her new contract days ago, back when she thought the worst was over. Frost spread out surveillance photos on the table, images captured from cameras hidden throughout the hospital. We had 37 people enter the building this morning, she said. 18 were our agents, 12 were staff we'd cleared in advance. That leaves 7 unknowns. She pointed to the photos one by one. These 3 are delivery drivers, verified. These 2 are patients who showed up for appointments that weren't canceled, also verified, which leaves these 2. The first photo showed a woman in her 50s, wearing a visitor's badge, carrying flowers. The second showed a man in his 30s, the same janitor who'd walked into Jenna's office. We ran their IDs, Frost continued. The woman checks out. Her husband's a patient on the 3rd floor. But the janitor? She pulled up another photo, this one showing his face more clearly. His ID is fake. The name on his badge doesn't match anyone in the hospital's employment records. That's him, Jenna said. Maybe. Or maybe he's just someone who bought a fake ID to work under the table. We've got agents tracking him now, but he disappeared into the parking garage and we lost him. Marcus swore under his breath. He could be anywhere by now. Not anywhere. Frost pulled up a map of Ashford on her laptop. He's got to know we're looking for him, which means he'll go to ground somewhere he feels safe, somewhere he can watch and wait. Or somewhere he can finish the job, Jenna said quietly. Frost looked at her. What are you thinking? I'm thinking he had a chance to kill me this morning. He walked right into my office, close enough to touch me, and he didn't do anything. He just left. Maybe he didn't have a weapon. Maybe he was just confirming you were there. Or maybe he doesn't want to kill me in a building full of federal agents. Jenna stood up and walked to the window. He called me yesterday. He gave me a choice. Walk away or die. What if he's still waiting to see which one I pick? So what do we do, Etienne? Marcus asked. Jenna turned to face them. We give him an answer. 20 minutes later, Jenna stood in front of the hospital's main entrance while reporters gathered with cameras and microphones. Marcus had arranged the press conference, claimed it was about Jenna's new position as director of nursing, about the hospital's commitment to transparency and reform, but everyone knew what it was really about. Jenna stepped up to the microphone. The cameras started rolling. My name is Jenna Rains, she began. 2 weeks ago, I saved a man's life at an airport. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know it would lead to any of this. I just saw someone who needed help, and I helped them. She paused, letting that sink in. Since then, I've been threatened. My daughter has been threatened. People have tried to scare me into silence, to make me disappear, to pretend that what happened at this hospital didn't happen. But I'm not going anywhere. The reporters started shouting questions. Jenna ignored them and kept talking. Barbara Hastings broke the law. She endangered patients. She retaliated against staff who tried to report violations. And now she's hired someone to make sure I don't testify against her. So here's what I'm going to say to that person. Whoever you are, I'm not afraid of you. I'm not walking away. And if you want to stop me, you're going to have to do it in front of all these cameras. She stepped back from the microphone. The reporters erupted, but Frost was already there, guiding Jenna back inside. They made it to the elevator before Jenna's legs gave out. Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. You okay? No. She leaned against the wall, her hands shaking. But it's done. Frost's phone rang. She answered it, listened for 10 seconds, then hung up with an expression Jenna couldn't read. That was the U.S. Attorney's Office. They want to move Barbara's bail hearing up. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Why? Because your press conference just went viral. Barbara's lawyers are claiming she's being subjected to a public witch hunt. The judge wants to address it immediately. Marcus smiled grimly. Good. Let's end this. That night, Jenna stayed at the courthouse again, but this time Lily was brought to see her. The reunion happened in a conference room under the watch of 2 agents, and Jenna didn't care that they were being monitored. She just held her daughter and tried not to cry. You were on TV, Lily said. Everyone's talking about it. I know. You looked really brave. I was terrified. That's what brave means, Mom. Doing it anyway. Jenna pulled back to look at her daughter. When had she gotten so grown up? When had she started saying things that sounded like wisdom instead of childhood? I'm sorry you had to go through this, Jenna said. It's not your fault. It feels like it is. Lily shook her head. Mom, you saved someone's life. You told the truth. You didn't do anything wrong. The people who are trying to hurt you are the ones who should be sorry. They talked until visiting hours ended, and then Lily was taken back to the safe house, and Jenna was alone again. She tried to sleep, but ended up staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios for tomorrow's hearing, trying to prepare for every possibility. Her phone buzzed around midnight. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? The same voice from yesterday, the janitor, the hired killer, whatever he was. That was quite a speech. Did you like it? Honestly, it was stupid. You just painted a bigger target on yourself. Or I made it impossible for you to do your job without everyone knowing who hired you. He laughed. Fair point, but here's the thing, I don't work for Barbara Hastings anymore. Jenna sat up. What? I quit. Called her this afternoon and told her the deal's off. She didn't take it well. Why would you do that? Because I did some more digging, found out what she was really doing at that hospital. Found out about the patients who died because she cut corners, the staff who got fired for speaking up. And I realized she lied to me. She said you were trying to destroy her for personal reasons. Turns out you were just trying to stop her from killing people. So you're just going to walk away. Already did. I'm calling to give you a heads up. Barbara knows I quit, and she's not the kind of person who handles rejection well. She's going to try something tomorrow at the hearing. I don't know what, but I know it's going to be bad. How do you know? Because she tried to hire me to do it, and when I said no, she said she'd find someone else. Someone cheaper. Someone desperate. The line went dead. Jenna immediately called Frost. The agent answered on the first ring, already awake. What's wrong? Jenna told her everything. When she finished, Frost was quiet for a moment. I'll double security at the courthouse tomorrow. Metal detectors at every entrance. Agents in every room. If Barbara's planning something, we'll catch it. And if you don't, then we improvise. The courthouse looked like a fortress the next morning. Federal agents everywhere. Barricades set up on the street. Reporters kept behind police tape 3 blocks away. Jenna walked through security with Marcus beside her, both of them silent, both of them knowing this was it. The end or the beginning, depending on how the next few hours went. Barbara was already in the courtroom when they arrived, flanked by her lawyers and looking smaller somehow, like the last few days had aged her a decade. When she saw Jenna, something flickered across her face. Hate, yes, but also fear, the kind that came from knowing you'd lost. Judge Moreno called the hearing to order. We're here to address the question of Ms. Hastings' bail. The prosecution has filed a motion to revoke, citing new evidence of witness intimidation and conspiracy to commit violence. Ms. Hastings, how do you plead to these charges? Barbara stood up. Not guilty, Your Honor. Do you have anything to say in your own defense? Barbara looked at her lawyers, then at Jenna, then back at the judge. I made mistakes. I know that. But I never tried to hurt anyone. Everything I did was to protect the hospital, to keep it running when we didn't have the resources we needed. And now I'm being vilified for doing my job. Your job didn't include falsifying federal reports or hiring someone to threaten a witness, Judge Moreno said flatly. I didn't hire anyone to threaten her. I hired someone to watch her, to make sure she wasn't planning to do something that would hurt the hospital's reputation further. By threatening her daughter? I never threatened her daughter. That was a misunderstanding. I have text messages, Ms. Hastings. Threatening messages sent to Ms. Raines's phone. Messages that specifically mentioned her daughter's school, her schedule, her location. Barbara's face went pale. Those weren't from me. They were sent by someone you paid. I paid him to watch her, not to threaten her. Judge Moreno leaned forward. Do you understand how absurd that sounds? You paid someone to surveil a federal witness, and you expect this court to believe you had no idea they would use that information to intimidate her? Barbara opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. Your Honor, I was desperate. My entire life was falling apart. I just wanted to know if she was coming after me, if there was any way to stop this from destroying everything I'd worked for. By destroying her instead? No, I just wanted to scare her, make her think twice before testifying, that's all. The courtroom went silent. Even Barbara's lawyers looked horrified. Judge Moreno's expression was ice. You just admitted to witness intimidation in open court. I'm revoking your bail immediately. Bailiff, take her into custody. Barbara's face crumbled. Wait, I didn't mean… Your Honor, please. Two bailiffs moved in and took her by the arms. She struggled, her voice rising to a shout. This isn't fair. She destroyed my life. She ruined everything. All I did was try to run a hospital, and she turned me into a criminal. You turned yourself into a criminal, Judge Moreno said quietly. Miss Raines just made sure everyone found out. They dragged Barbara from the courtroom. Her shouts echoed down the hallway, getting fainter and fainter until they finally disappeared. Jenna sat in her chair, her hands folded in her lap, and tried to feel something: relief, satisfaction, victory. But all she felt was tired. Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. It's over. Is it? Barbara's in custody. The investigation's moving forward. The hospital's getting cleaned up. Yeah, it's over. Jenna wanted to believe him. But something about the way Barbara had looked at her in those final moments, desperate, yes, but also calculating, made her think this wasn't finished yet. They left the courthouse through a side exit, avoiding the reporters who were already broadcasting the news. Frost was waiting by the car, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression grim. When she saw them, she ended the call. We've got a problem. What now? Marcus asked. Someone just tried to access the hospital's drug storage, triggered every alarm in the building, security's on it, but whoever it was got away before our agents arrived. Jenna felt her stomach drop. What were they trying to take? Fentanyl, enough to kill dozens of people. Marcus swore. Barbara's desperate hire, the cheap one. That's what I'm thinking. Frost looked at Jenna. We need to get you back into protective custody. Now. But Jenna was already shaking her head. No, I'm going to the hospital. Jenna, that's exactly where they want you. That's exactly where I need to be. If someone's going after the drugs, they're either planning to sell them or use them. And if they're using them… She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. They drove to Mercy Hill in silence. The hospital looked normal from the outside, cars in the parking lot, people coming and going, the same building Jenna had worked in for 8 years. But inside, the security presence was obvious. Agents in every hallway, police officers at every entrance, staff looking nervous and whispering to each other. Jenna went straight to the pharmacy. The door was open, the lock broken, medications scattered across the floor like someone had been searching frantically. The head pharmacist, a woman named Angela, who'd been there longer than Jenna, stood in the middle of the mess looking shell-shocked. What happened? Jenna asked. Someone broke in, dressed like a nurse, so security let them through. By the time we realized they weren't staff, they were already in here. What did they take? Angela held up an inventory sheet with shaking hands. 300 micrograms of fentanyl, enough to… I know what it's enough to do. Jenna looked at this broken lock, the scattered medications. Did you see their face? No. They were wearing a surgical mask, but… Angela hesitated. They knew exactly where to look. They went straight for the controlled substances cabinet, knew which drawer, knew the code. This wasn't random. Jenna's blood went cold. Who has access to those codes? Administration, senior nursing staff, and anyone who's worked in the pharmacy long enough to memorize them. How many people is that? Maybe 20, but half of them have been fired or resigned in the last week. Jenna pulled out her phone and called Frost. The person who broke in knew the pharmacy codes. That means they either work here or used to. I'm pulling employment records now. How many people have access? About 20, but most of them are gone. That still leaves… Frost paused. Jenna could hear typing in the background. 7 current employees with pharmacy access. I'm sending you the list. The list appeared on Jenna's phone a moment later. She scanned the names, her heart sinking as she recognized each one. Nurses she'd worked with for years, people she'd trusted. Then she saw it. The last name on the list. Sarah Mitchell. The same Sarah who'd testified against her in court. The same Sarah who'd called her difficult, who'd accused her of freezing people out when they disagreed with her. Jenna looked up at Angela. Where's Sarah? I don't know. She called in sick this morning. Jenna was already running. She didn't wait for Frost or Marcus or anyone else. She just ran through the hallways, past confused staff and startled agents, down to the parking garage where Sarah's car was usually parked. The space was empty. Jenna called Frost. "Sarah Mitchell, she's the one. Where does she live?" "Jenna, wait for backup. Where does she live?" Frost gave her an address on the east side of town. Jenna got in her car and drove, her hands gripping the wheels so tight her knuckles went white. She tried Sarah's number. It went straight to voicemail. The apartment building was old, run down, the kind of place people lived when they couldn't afford anywhere better. Jenna parked and ran up 3 flights of stairs to apartment 307. She knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, harder. "Sarah, it's Jenna. I know you're in there." The door opened. Sarah stood in the doorway and Jenna barely recognized her. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes red from crying, and in her hand was a syringe filled with clear liquid. "Go away," Sarah said. "What are you doing? What does it look like?" Sarah held up the syringe, finishing what Barbara started. "She paid me $20,000 to testify against you, another 20 if I could make sure you didn't live to see the trial end." "Sarah, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Sarah's voice broke. "I've got a daughter in college. Tuition I can't afford. Student loans that are crushing me. I needed the money, Jenna, and Barbara said all I had to do was tell the truth about how difficult you were to work with. I didn't know she was going to try to have you killed. I didn't know any of this would happen." "Then stop. Put down the syringe and walk away." "I can't. She's in jail now, but her lawyers are still watching me. If I don't finish this, they'll come after my daughter. They'll destroy her the way you destroyed Barbara." "I didn't destroy Barbara. She destroyed herself. By doing her job. By making hard choices in a broken system. By breaking the law. By putting patients at risk. By lying to federal investigators." Sarah shook her head. "You don't get it. You never did. You think you're some kind of hero, but you're just someone who was in the right place at the right time. You got lucky. The rest of us have to survive." She raised the syringe. Jenna took a step back. "Sarah, think about your daughter. What happens to her if you do this? She gets her tuition paid. She gets a life. She gets a mother in prison for murder." Sarah hesitated. The syringe wavered. "Barbara's lawyers are lying to you," Jenna said quietly. "They're not going to protect you. The second you're arrested, they'll cut you loose and deny everything. You'll be alone. And your daughter will lose you anyway." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because that's what Barbara did to everyone. She used them and threw them away. Why do you think she's in jail right now?" Sarah's face crumbled. The syringe slipped from her fingers and hit the floor, the liquid inside spilling across the cheap linoleum. She collapsed against the doorframe, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. I just needed the money." Jenna stepped forward carefully and took Sarah by the shoulders. "It's going to be okay. We're going to fix this." Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Frost must have sent backup when Jenna stopped answering her phone. Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with panic. "They're going to arrest me." "Yes, but if you cooperate, if you testify against Barbara's lawyers, they might go easier on you. My daughter, I'll make sure she's taken care of. I promise." Sarah stared at her. "Why would you do that?" "Because I remember what it's like to be desperate, and because your daughter doesn't deserve to lose her mother over this." The police arrived 3 minutes later. Frost was with them, looking equal parts furious and relieved. She took Sarah into custody while reading her rights, then turned to Jenna. "You could have been killed, but I wasn't. You're not a field agent, Jenna. You can't just—" "I know. I'm sorry." Frost stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. "Come on, let's get you back to the courthouse. We've got statements to take and paperwork to file. This is going to be a long night." It was. Jenna spent the next 6 hours in a conference room, going over everything that had happened, making sure every detail was documented. Marcus brought her coffee that went cold before she could drink it. Agent Frost came and went, coordinating with other agencies, making sure all the pieces fit together. Around midnight, Frost came back with news. "Sarah Mitchell's cooperating. She gave us everything: recordings of her conversations with Barbara's lawyers, text messages, bank records showing the payments. We've got enough to charge 3 more people with conspiracy. What about Sarah? The U.S. attorney's offering a deal. She testifies, she gets 5 years instead of 20. Her daughter's been notified. We're working on getting her financial aid so she doesn't have to drop out. Jenna nodded, too exhausted to feel much of anything. One more thing, Frost said. The janitor called me. The guy Barbara originally hired. He wants to testify too. Why? Apparently watching you refuse to back down made him rethink his career choices. He's offering to provide information on every job Barbara tried to hire him for. Every time she tried to cover something up, it's going to bury her. Marcus laughed, tired but genuine. So we won. We won, Frost agreed. Jenna stood up on shaking legs. Can I see Lily now? I'll take you to her myself. The safe house was across town, a nondescript apartment in a complex that looked like 1,000 others. 2 agents stood guard outside. They nodded to Frost and let her through. Lily was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, the TV playing quietly in the background. Jenna sat down beside her and just watched her breathe for a while, the way she used to when Lily was a baby. Lily stirred and opened her eyes. Mom? Hi, baby. Is it over? Yeah, it's over. Lily sat up and hugged her, and Jenna held on tight, grateful for this moment, this second chance, this life that had almost been taken away. They stayed like that until the sun started to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked like hope. But as Jenna finally allowed herself to relax, her phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but habit made her look. A text message. 1 line. Check Barbara Hastings' visitor log from yesterday. Cell block C. You'll want to see who came to see her before the hearing. Jenna's blood went cold. She showed it to Frost. Who sent this? I don't know, but we need to check that log. They called the detention center. The officer on duty pulled the records and read them over the phone. When he got to the name, Frost's expression changed. Say that again. The officer repeated it. Frost hung up and looked at Jenna with an expression that made her stomach drop. Gerald Whitmore visited Barbara yesterday afternoon, the hospital board chairman. He was there for 45 minutes. Jenna felt the world tilt. What? He's the one who offered you the settlement. He's the one who wanted to make this all go away quietly. Frost pulled out her laptop and started typing frantically. If he's working with Barbara, then this isn't over, Marcus finished. And somewhere in the city, in an office overlooking Ashford, Gerald Whitmore sat at his desk with a phone to his ear, smiling. Gerald Whitmore's office was on the top floor of the Ashford Commerce Tower, a building that looked down on the entire city like a monument to people who thought money made them untouchable. Frost wanted to wait for a warrant. Jenna didn't. She walked into the lobby at 7 a.m. wearing the same borrowed suit, her ID badge from Mercy Hill clipped to her collar, and an expression that made the security guard think twice about stopping her. Marcus was right behind her, along with 2 federal agents Frost had sent as backup. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, Jenna walked straight to the reception desk where a young woman sat typing on a computer. I need to see Gerald Whitmore. The receptionist looked up, startled. Do you have an appointment? No, but he'll see me. I'm sorry, but Mr. Whitmore doesn't take walk-ins. Tell him Jenna Raines is here. Tell him if he doesn't see me in the next 5 minutes, I'm walking down to the courthouse and filing a criminal complaint for conspiracy. The receptionist's eyes went wide. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly for a moment, then hung up and pointed down the hall. Last door on the right. Gerald's office was exactly what Jenna expected. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked half of Ashford. Gerald sat behind his desk in a suit that probably cost more than Jenna made in a month, his expression calm but his eyes calculating. Ms. Raines, this is unexpected. You visited Barbara Hastings yesterday at the detention center. Gerald's smile didn't waver. I visited a colleague who's going through a difficult time. Is that a crime? It is when you're coordinating with her to obstruct a federal investigation. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. You offered me a settlement to drop the investigation. When I refused, Barbara tried to have me killed. And when that didn't work, you came up with a backup plan. Gerald leaned back in his chair. You have quite an imagination. I have phone records, bank statements, a witness who's willing to testify that you paid them to falsify evidence. Jenna pulled out her phone and set it on the desk. Agent Frost is getting a warrant right now. In about 20 minutes, this office is going to be full of federal agents tearing apart every file you have. So here's your chance. Tell me the truth. And maybe I can convince them to go easy on you. Gerald stared at her for a long moment, then laughed. You really think you've won, don't you? I know I have. You haven't won anything. You've just painted a bigger target on yourself. He stood up and walked to the window. Do you know how many hospitals I oversee? How many boards I sit on? How many people owe me favors? I don't care. You should, because even if you take me down, there are a dozen others just like me. People who understand that hospitals are businesses, not charities. People who know that sometimes you have to make hard choices to keep the doors open. Hard choices like letting patients die to save money? Gerald turned to face her. Hard choices like firing incompetent staff, like cutting programs that don't generate revenue, like making sure the hospital doesn't go bankrupt because people like you think every life can be saved. Not every life can be saved, but every life deserves a chance. That's naive. That's humanity. Gerald's expression hardened. You want to know why I visited Barbara? Because she called me in a panic, saying you were going to destroy everything we'd built. And she was right. You've spent 2 weeks tearing down a system that took decades to create. You've cost us millions in legal fees, destroyed our reputation, and for what? So you could feel like a hero? No, so people like you would stop getting away with it. The door opened. Agent Frost walked in with 4 other agents, all of them armed. She held up a warrant. Gerald Whitmore, you're under arrest for conspiracy to obstruct justice, witness intimidation, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Gerald held up his hands. I want my lawyer. You'll get one. At the federal courthouse. Let's go. They let him out in handcuffs. Jenna watched from the window as they put him in the back of an unmarked car, watched the city spread out below her, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not victory, not quite, just the quiet certainty that she'd done what needed to be done. Marcus came up beside her. That was reckless. I know. You could have gotten yourself killed if you'd panicked. I know that too. So why'd you do it? Jenna looked at him. Because I'm tired of waiting for other people to fix things. Because if I've learned anything from all of this, it's that the only person who's going to stand up for you is you. Marcus nodded slowly. Fair enough. So what now? Now we've finished the job. The next 2 weeks moved like a freight train. Gerald Whitmore was formally charged with 12 counts of fraud and conspiracy. His lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the U.S. attorney wasn't interested, not after Sarah Mitchell's testimony connected him to 3 other board members who'd been covering up violations at hospitals across the state. Barbara Hastings' bail was permanently revoked. Her trial date was set for 6 months out, and her lawyers were already talking about plea negotiations. The hospital board voted to dissolve itself and hand control over to a federal oversight committee until new leadership could be installed, and Jenna went back to work. Her first day as director of nursing started at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning. She walked into Mercy Hill wearing scrubs instead of a suit, her hair pulled back, her ID badge clipped to her collar. The ER was already busy, 2 ambulances in the bay, nurses running between rooms, the familiar chaos that felt more like home than anywhere else. Rita was at the nurses' station, looking exhausted but smiling. Welcome back, boss. Don't call me that. What should I call you? Jenna, same as always. Rita handed her a tablet. We're up to full staffing as of this morning. 22 nurses on the floor, 6 in triage, 4 in trauma. Federal funding came through last week. Jenna scanned the roster. Names she recognized, faces she trusted, people who'd been working double shifts for years just to keep the place running. How are they holding up? Better now that they know someone's actually paying attention. Jenna spent the morning walking the floors, talking to staff, checking in on patients. She found problems everywhere. Outdated equipment, supply shortages, rooms that needed repairs. She made notes on everything, sent emails to Marcus about what needed to be fixed, and kept moving. Around noon, she found herself in the same conference room where the hospital board had offered her the settlement. The table was covered in files now, staffing reports, budget projections, plans for rebuilding a department that had been gutted by years of neglect. Agent Frost had left her a message that morning saying the federal investigation was wrapping up, that most of the evidence had been collected, that the trial would handle the rest. Jenna's phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "How's the first day going?" "Busy. Good. How's school?" "Weird. Everyone keeps asking me about the trial. I tell them my mom's a badass." Jenna smiled. "Don't swear. You literally went on national TV and told a hitman to come fight you." "I can say badass." "Fair point." She spent the afternoon in meetings, budget reviews, staffing discussions, plans for implementing new protocols. By 5 p.m., her head was pounding and her coffee had gone cold 3 times. She was reading through a proposal for upgraded monitoring equipment when someone knocked on the door. Marcus walked in looking tired but satisfied. "Got a minute?" "Depends. Are you bringing me more problems?" "Just one. But it's a good one." He sat down and pulled out a folder. "The U.S. attorney wants you to testify at Barbara's trial." Character witness. "They want you to explain what it was like working under her, how the understaffing affected patient care, all of it." "When?" "Probably not for another few months, but they wanted to give you a heads up." Jenna nodded. "I'll do it." "I figured. There's something else." He pushed the folder across the desk. "The state medical board wants to present you with a commendation for exemplary service and advocacy on behalf of patients. It comes with a $10,000 grant to use however you want for the hospital." Jenna stared at the folder. "I don't need a commendation." "Maybe not, but it sends a message. It tells every other nurse in this state that speaking up won't get them fired. It matters." She opened the folder and scanned the letter inside. The ceremony was scheduled for next month. Black tie. Speeches. The kind of event she'd spent her entire career avoiding. "I'll think about it," she said. Marcus smiled. "That's not a no." He left. Jenna sat alone in the conference room as the sun started to set outside, painting the sky in shades of orange that reminded her of the airport, of the moment everything changed. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Miss Raines? This is Colonel Hayes." Jenna sat up straighter. "Sir, told you not to call me that." He sounded amused. "I've been following the news. Looks like you've had quite a month." "That's one way to put it." "I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something. When you left the service, I told you that you were wasting your talent if you didn't go back to school. You remember that?" "Mom's basang." "I remember. I was wrong. You weren't wasting anything. You were doing exactly what you were trained to do, saving lives and standing up when everyone else walked away. I should have told you that then. I'm telling you now." Jenna's throat tightened. "Thank you, sir." "You did good, Raines. Real good. Don't let anyone tell you different." The call ended. Jenna sat there for a long moment, holding her phone, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Not pride exactly. Just the quiet knowledge that she'd done what she was supposed to do, even when it was hard, even when it cost her everything. She left the office around 7. The ER was still busy, but the night shift had it under control. Jenna walked through the parking lot to her car, her footsteps echoing in the darkness, and drove home through streets that finally felt safe again. Lily was waiting when she got there, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and homework spread everywhere. "How was it?" Lily asked. "Long, good, exhausting." "So basically every day from now on?" "Probably." Lily closed her laptop. "Mom, I've been thinking." "About what?" "About what you said. About how the only person who's going to stand up for you is you." Jenna sat down across from her. "Yeah?" "I want to do what you do. When I grow up, I want to be a nurse." Jenna felt her heart clench. "Lily, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to. Because I watched you save someone's life and then refused to shut up about it even when people tried to kill you. And I realized that's what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to make things better. Jenna reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. It's not easy. I know. It's going to be hard. People are going to underestimate you. They're going to try to silence you. They're going to make you feel like you don't matter. And then I'll prove them wrong, just like you did. Jenna smiled through tears she didn't bother hiding. Yeah, just like I did. They ordered pizza and stayed up late watching terrible movies, and for the first time in weeks, Jenna let herself relax. The investigation was over. The hospital was rebuilding. Barbara and Gerald were going to prison, and somewhere out there, other nurses were watching what had happened and realizing they didn't have to stay silent anymore. The commendation ceremony happened on a Saturday morning in the state capitol. Jenna wore a dress she'd borrowed from Rita, her hair pulled back, her hands shaking as she walked up to the podium to accept an award she still didn't think she deserved. The governor handed her a plaque and shook her hand while cameras flashed. On behalf of the state medical board, the governor said into the microphone, we recognize Jenna Rains for her extraordinary service to patients, her courage in exposing systemic failures, and her unwavering commitment to the principle that every life matters. The room erupted in applause. Jenna looked out at the crowd, Marcus and Agent Frost in the front row, Lily sitting beside them, with a smile that could light up the world, nurses from Mercy Hill who'd driven 3 hours just to be there. She thought about all the people who weren't there. Barbara, sitting in a cell waiting for trial. Gerald, probably in his lawyer's office working on a defense that wouldn't save him. The 17 soldiers she couldn't save in the desert, whose names she still remembered. She stepped up to the microphone. I don't feel like a hero, she began. Heroes are people who do extraordinary things. I just did my job. I saw someone who needed help, and I helped them. And when people tried to punish me for it, I refused to apologize. She paused, looking at Lily. Someone told me recently that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do it anyway. And I think that's true. I was terrified every single day of the last month, terrified I'd lose my daughter, terrified I'd lose my job, terrified that speaking up would cost me everything. But I also knew that staying silent would cost something worse, my ability to look at myself in the mirror and know I did the right thing. So I spoke up. I fought back. I refused to disappear. She gripped the podium. There are nurses all over this state who are working in the same conditions I worked in. Understaffed, overworked, watching patients suffer because the people in charge care more about budgets than lives. And I want to tell those nurses something. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to stay silent. You don't have to wait for someone else to fix it. Stand up, speak out, report the violations, document everything. And when they try to silence you, and they will try, remember that you're not alone. Remember that people are watching. Remember that the truth is stronger than any lie they can tell. The applause was deafening. Jenna stepped back from the podium, her legs shaking, and let herself be guided off the stage by someone who wasn't important. What mattered was the message. What mattered was the nurses who were listening, the ones who would remember this moment when they needed it. She found Lily in the lobby afterward. Her daughter wrapped her arms around her and held on tight. That was amazing, Mom. It was terrifying. That's what made it amazing. They drove home in comfortable silence. Jenna's phone kept buzzing with messages. Congratulations from people she barely knew, interview requests from news outlets, emails from advocacy groups asking if she'd speak at their events. She ignored all of it and focused on the road, on the late afternoon sun painting everything gold, on the fact that she was still here and still fighting. When they got home, there was a package waiting on the doorstep. No return address. Jenna carried it inside and opened it carefully, half expecting another threat. Instead, she found a handwritten note and a check. The note was from the anonymous caller, the hitman who'd walked away. It read, "You were right. Some things are worth more than money. This is what Barbara paid me. Use it however you want. And for what it's worth, thank you for reminding me that there's still something worth fighting for." The check was for $50,000, made out to the Mercy Hill Regional Medical Center Nursing Education Fund. Jenna stared at it for a long time, then called Marcus. "I need you to help me set up a scholarship for nursing students who can't afford tuition. I want it to be permanent. I want it to keep going long after I'm gone. Where's the money coming from?" She told him. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then laughed. Only you could turn blood money into something good. It's what we do. We take broken things and fix them. The scholarship was announced a week later. Within a month, applications started pouring in. Students from across the state who wanted to become nurses, who wanted to help people, who needed someone to believe in them the way Colonel Hayes had believed in Jenna. Mercy Hill continued to rebuild. New staff were hired. Equipment was upgraded. Patient outcomes improved. The Federal Oversight Committee praised Jenna's work and extended her contract for another 3 years. She signed it without hesitation. Barbara Hastings' trial lasted 6 weeks. Jenna testified on the third day, spending 4 hours on the stand explaining what it was like to work in a hospital that prioritized profit over patients. The jury took 2 hours to find Barbara guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Gerald Whitmore got 12 years. The other board members got various sentences ranging from probation to 8 years behind bars. The hospital's former CFO, Thomas Carr, cooperated with prosecutors and got 18 months. Sarah Mitchell served 9 months in a minimum security facility, then was released on parole. Her daughter graduated from college with honors. Jenna attended the ceremony. The janitor who'd walked away, whose real name turned out to be David Reeves, disappeared after sending the check. Agent Frost tried to track him down for questioning, but he was a ghost. Jenna hoped he'd found something better to do with his life than hurt people for money. 6 months after everything ended, Jenna sat in her office at Mercy Hill going through the monthly staffing reports. The numbers were good, better than good. The ER was fully staffed. Patient complaints were down. Staff retention was the highest it had been in a decade. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Got into nursing school early admission. They gave me a full scholarship. Guess whose name is on it? Jenna smiled and typed back. Proud of you, kid. Couldn't have done it without you showing me what it looks like to actually give a damn. Jenna set her phone down and walked to the window. Outside, Ashford spread out in every direction. A city full of hospitals and clinics and people who needed help. She thought about all the nurses who were working right now, fighting the same battles she'd fought, wondering if speaking up would cost them everything. She hoped they'd remember her story. Hoped they'd remember that one person standing up could change an entire system. Hoped they'd find the courage to do what was right, even when it was hard. Because that's what this job was. Not heroism, not glory. Just showing up every day and refusing to let people die when you had the power to save them. It wasn't perfect. She still worked too many hours. Still worried about money. Still woke up some nights in a cold sweat, remembering the desert or the courtroom or the moment she'd watched Barbara get dragged away in handcuffs. But she also woke up knowing she'd made a difference. That patients were safer because she'd spoken up. That nurses had better working conditions because she'd refused to back down. That her daughter was going to enter a profession knowing it was possible to fight back and win. That was enough. Jenna turned away from the window and got back to work. There were staffing schedules to review, budgets to approve, 1,000 small decisions that would determine whether people lived or died. The kind of work that nobody noticed until it wasn't done. The kind of work that mattered most. Her office door opened. Rita stuck her head in. We've got a situation in the ER. Multi-car accident. 6 critical. We need all hands. Jenna was already moving. She grabbed her stethoscope, checked her pockets for gloves, and followed Rita down the hallway at a run. They hit the ER together, and Jenna felt the familiar rush of adrenaline kick in. The same feeling she'd had in the desert, at the airport, every time someone needed help, and she was there to give it. Where do you need me? She asked. Trauma 2, GSW, to the abdomen. He's crashing. Jenna ran. The patient was young, maybe 20, his shirt soaked with blood, his eyes wide with fear. She put her hand on his shoulder. Hey, look at me. You're going to be okay. I've got you. His breathing slowed, just a little, just enough. Jenna got to work. Her hands moved on autopilot, starting an IV, calling for blood, preparing for surgery. Around her, the ER moved like a machine, every person knowing their role, every second counting. This was what she'd fought for. This moment. This chance to save someone who would have died if the hospital had been understaffed, underfunded, run by people who cared more about money than lives. The patient stabilized. The surgeon arrived and took over. Jenna stepped back, her hands covered in blood, her scrubs stained, her heart still pounding. Rita appeared beside her with a towel. You good? Yeah, I'm good. That's 3 saves this week. Who's counting? I am. Someone has to remind you that you're actually good at this. Jenna smiled and wiped her hands. Thanks, Rita. Don't mention it, boss. Jenna didn't correct her this time. Maybe it was okay to be the boss. Maybe it was okay to have authority and use it to make things better. Maybe that's what leadership was supposed to be. Not power for its own sake, but power in service of something bigger. She worked until midnight, then drove home through streets that were quiet and safe. Lily was already asleep when she got there, her laptop still open beside her, notes for a class she was taking on patient advocacy spread across the bed. Jenna closed the laptop carefully, turned off the light, and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her daughter sleep. 12 years old and already more brave than Jenna had been at twice her age, already understanding that the world was broken and that fixing it required showing up even when it was hard. She went to her own room and collapsed into bed, too tired to change out of her scrubs. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text from Marcus. Saw the news about the accident. Heard you saved another one. When do you sleep? Jenna typed back, when there's time, which is never. You need to take care of yourself too. I will. Eventually. That's what you said last month. And I meant it. Eventually. She set her phone down and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd be back at the hospital. More patients, more crises, more moments where someone's life hung in the balance, and she had to decide how hard to fight. But tonight, she let herself rest, let herself feel the weight of everything she'd accomplished, everything she'd survived, everything she'd changed. She'd been invisible for 8 years. Just another nurse, just another face in the hallway, someone people walked past without seeing. And then she'd saved one life at the wrong time, and everything fell apart. But it also fell together, because she refused to disappear, because she stood up when everyone told her to sit down, because she believed that people mattered more than money, that truth mattered more than comfort, that doing the right thing was worth whatever it cost. She wasn't a hero, she was just someone who showed up, someone who fought back, someone who refused to let the system crush her. And in the end, that was enough. The desert had taught her how to save lives under impossible conditions. The hospital had taught her how to fight systems that were designed to break people. The last month had taught her that one voice could change everything, as long as that voice refused to be silenced. Jenna Rains fell asleep with her scrubs still on and her phone still buzzing with messages she'd answer tomorrow. She dreamed about the 17 soldiers she couldn't save, but this time they weren't angry. They were just there, watching, nodding, telling her she'd done what she could. And when she woke up 6 hours later to another shift, another crisis, another chance to make a difference, she got up and did it all over again. Because that's what nurses do. They show up, they fight, they refuse to quit. And sometimes, if they're lucky and stubborn enough, they win.